Chapter 940. The door was slammed open. Bae-yunj had just been thinking about Hoshiru. Just as she came back to her senses, she saw that everyone at the conference table was looking at her. She paused. "I'm sorry." As soon as she finished speaking, however, Bae-yunj was not embarrassed at all as she sat beside Old Master Chin. She slowly glanced at the higher-ups and Elena opposite her. This was Elena's second time seeing Bae-yunj, but she froze. She felt that the Bae-yunj in front of her did not look like the girl she had seen before. Her eyes were cold and unruly. Her eyes were curved and filled with a lazy coldness. She was just wearing a loose hoodie, and her black hair was loose and slightly curled. She was already so beautiful that no one could ignore her. "Let's continue." Bae-yunj's voice was clear and melodious. It was difficult to detect the slight hoarseness in it, as she leaned lazily against the back of the chair. The others sneered, feeling that this elder miss was truly a hedonistic person. The Chin family was about to fall, yet she still dared to be so arrogant. Only Hans, who was beside Elena, sensed a certain gaze and instinctively looked up. He did not expect to meet Bae-yunj's interested eyes. He had a feeling that this person was a little familiar. But this was his first time in our nation. How could he know someone from our nation? Big Brother hasn't sent out the information on the USB drive yet? Bae-yunj suddenly asked. This made Elena's eyes fill with sarcasm. Hans was the best hacker in our nation. The only time he was humiliated was when he fought with Max. However, it was easy for him to deal with Qin Luyan, who was an outsider. "Miss, it's probably impossible to find the information in the USB drive." When Hans heard this, disdain appeared in his eyes as he smiled meaningfully. As soon as he finished speaking, Bae-yunj knew what was going on. She licked her red lips and chuckled softly. There was a faint coldness in the depths of her eyes. But then everyone heard Bae-yunj say leisurely, "Is that so? Why don't you try yours?" As soon as she finished speaking, the assistant, who was desperately refreshing the computer, frowned subconsciously. What on earth was Bae-yunj trying to do? "Miss Pei, do you know how to use a computer?" The assistant asked sarcastically. Very soon, Qin Luyan's magnetic voice rang out. "Assistant Wu." Assistant Wu felt a chill run down her spine. She gritted her teeth and passed the laptop to Bae-yunj. Bae-yunj smirked and started to restore the data on Qin Luyan's USB drive. This made Hans, who had inadvertently glanced at the screen, freeze with disdain. This girl obviously knows how to use a computer. Moreover, his skill level was not low. According to Bae-yunj's recovery speed, she would soon be able to recover the information that Qin Luyan had sorted out. Hans's face paled as a thought flashed through his mind. She immediately walked over with the glass of water in her hand. Within a few seconds, before anyone could react, they saw Hans accidentally spilling water on the keyboard. The data that Bae-yunj was halfway through was also lost due to the computer's automatic blue screen. "Oh, Miss Pei, I'm so sorry. My hand slipped, and I couldn't hold it properly." Hans smiled and apologized. However, Qin Luyan suddenly got up and walked to Bae-yunj's side. He held Bae-yunj's hand and checked. Bae-yunj's cold and fair skin was faintly red. The hot water in Hans's hand had splashed on her hand. "Gur, does it hurt?" The man, who did not even frown just now, suddenly bent down and gently blew on the back of the girl's hot hand. His cold voice was lowered. End of this chapter. Chapter 941. I am Miss Pei, I'm so sorry. My hand shook, and I didn't hold it properly." Hans smiled and apologized. However, Qin Luyan suddenly got up and walked to Bae-yunj's side. He held Bae-yunj's hand and checked. Bae-yunj's cold and fair skin was faintly red. The hot water in Hans's hand had splashed on her hand. "Gur, does it hurt?" The man, who did not even frown just now, suddenly bent down and gently blew on the back of the girl's hot hand. His cold voice was lowered. Bae-yunj was not used to close contact. She subconsciously frowned and quickly avoided Qin Luyan's hand. "I'm fine." Bae-yunj's tone was a little cold. Assistant Sung, bring my computer up. At this moment, everyone then realized that there was a familiar face standing beside Bae-yunj, but they could not remember who it was. "Yes, Mississippi." With that said, Hans's expression changed. He was worried that Bai Yunj had a backup. Hadn't he already destroyed the backup? Could it be that this person still had a copy of the information? 5 minutes later, Assistant Sung brought the computer upstairs. Bai Yunj stood up, pulled out the card reader from the computer, and plugged it into the equipment in the conference room. When she looked up again, Bai Yunj's eyes curved. She smiled lazily and said in a slightly cold voice, "Your hand shook, right? Continue, my computer is very waterproof." Hans's heart skipped a beat, and he suddenly had a bad feeling. Then, he saw several folders appear on the screen. Hans gritted his teeth, and was about to pounce on her and smash Bai Yunj's computer when Bai Yunj stopped him. But Sing Su, who was next to him, grabbed his hand. Sing Su's gaze turned cold as he looked at him warningly. "What are you trying to do?" B*TCH. Do you know what family we are from? Hans gritted his teeth in hatred. He had not expected such an accident. But the moment he finished speaking, before Hans could react, Sing Su kicked his knee, and he knelt down. "You!" Hans raised his head, and heard the sound of a swivel chair sliding backwards. He saw Bai Yunj walking towards him. Without saying a word, she slapped him across the face. Hans's head was knocked to the side, and his head was buzzing. The crisp sound caused the atmosphere to freeze by a few degrees. Bai Yunj's beautiful eyes curved, but she was still angry. She sneered condescendingly. "Do you know whose place this is? Ha! What are you doing?" Elena was furious. She did not expect that someone would dare to touch her men. "Bai Yunj, do you know what will happen to the Qin family if you dare to go against me?" Elena's gloomy eyes fell on Bai Yunj. The Angel family was a big family with a lot of assets. It was impossible to make them fall immediately. A centipede dies but never falls down. Bai Yunj said unhurriedly. Sung Su continue. Suddenly, Sung Su then gave Hans a fierce punch, causing his eyes to turn black. Hans howled in pain. Sung Su grabbed his collar and continued to punch him in the face. Bai Yunj's bright and unruly eyes revealed a terrifying danger and hostility. She said unhurriedly, "Did you see that? In my place, you're no different from other people's dogs." Everyone felt their scalps go numb for some reason. They felt that they would be next. Even Qin Luyan and Old Master Qin felt that the Bai Yunj in front of them was extremely unfamiliar. "What are you looking at? Hurry up and call the police." Elena was furious and glared at the higher-ups of the Qin family. Chapter 942. But Elena's face turned pale. Could it be that Qin Luyan had a backup plan? This evidence was far more detailed than the one she had asked Hans to delete 2 days ago. There was even her business in the gray area. It had all been dug out. The signed documents, recordings, and videos. Not a single one was missing. Even if Angel wanted to fish her out, he would have to skin her alive. "Qin Luyan, I've never killed you from the beginning to the end. Why are you doing this to me?" Elena gritted her teeth, wishing she could drag the refined and handsome man in front of her to hell. When the fat executive who made the call reacted, his face turned pale, and he immediately hung up the call. Qin Luyan frowned but did not say anything. He instinctively walked to Bai Yunj's side, afraid that Elena would go crazy and attack Bai Yunj. A cold glint flashed past Elena's eyes. Then, she pursed her lips and walked to Qin Luyan's side. "Boss Qin, let me off. I only did this because I wanted you. Let you off." Qin Luyan's tone was indifferent. How could he not see through this woman's tricks? Dream on. But then, just when no one noticed, Elena had unknowingly held a gun in her hand and pointed it at Bai Yunj behind Qin Luyan. "You won't let me off? Then can you bear to let her die with me?" The pitiful expression on Elena's face disappeared as she questioned with a cold smile. "Gun, she brought a gun." Someone immediately reacted and jumped in fright. Our nation did not control guns, but a nation prohibited private firearms. He did not know how this woman did it. She actually brought a gun with her. "Put the gun down." Old Master Qin was anxious. Qin Luyan froze as well. This was the first time Elena saw panic flash across Qin Luyan's eyes. She smiled coquettishly and gently hooked her index finger on the metal buckle on Qin Luyan's belt. "Boss Qin, help me delete it. How about that?" This was also the first time Qin Luyan did not push her away. He was afraid that the gun in her hand would hurt Bei Yunj. Qin Lian's voice was cold. Put the gun down. I know it's useless to point a gun at you, so I won't be stupid. Elena said coldly with an expressionless face. Qin Lian, if you don't delete that information, I'll let her die before me. Really? Bei Yunj suddenly asked. Immediately after, just as Elena was about to turn her head, she felt a cold touch against the back of her head. Elena froze as she recognized what it was. Lu Jian pressed the gun against the back of Elena's head and asked with a smile. Miss, I'm Lu Jian, the captain of the reconnaissance team in Yun City. Which do you think is faster, your gun or mine? Instantly, Elena froze. Only then did she realize that this was a trap. Bei Yunj had long known that she would do anything to make the evidence disappear. So she had been lying in wait for her. This was the first time in Elena's life that she had been tricked. Her eyes were gloomy. After Lu Jian's teammate took away her gun, Bei Yunj walked up to her. Take a guess. Could Wang Linming be in the same cell as you? Everyone was confused by Bei Yunj's words, but Elena suddenly remembered this person. She was the idiot who had deliberately arranged to deal with Qin Yu. However, these things were done very secretly, and almost never went through her hands. How did Bei Yunj know? Who on earth are you? Elena suppressed her inexplicable panic and asked darkly. P.S. I fixed it a little in front. The little kid reminded me and found that it was a little repetitive, so I fixed the details. Chapter 943. Do you need to know? Bei Yunj quickly looked away from her, as if she did not need to spend any effort on her. This made Elena feel naked humiliation. Bei Yunj, just you wait. Elena clenched her teeth as she finished speaking. Then she was dragged to the door. Do you know why they haven't left yet? Because I still have some gifts for everyone. Bei Yunj sat on the swivel chair again, and twirled her pen with one hand. The corners of her lips curled up. Everyone? Does anyone else want to try and touch the Qin family's foundation? With that said, everyone on the scene was silent. No one dared to stand out. It was only after the people outside left that Qin Luyan regained control of the situation. Bei Yunj sat at the side with one hand on her head, as if she was watching lazily. However, the person that these higher-ups were most wary of right now was this young girl. He could not help but say that to see Bei Yunj's reaction. When the crowd dispersed, after these people left, Bei Yunj looked up and tugged at her collar. Her head felt even heavier, but she did not show it just now. Grandpa, I'll go back first. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, she realized that her voice was a little hoarse. Guer, where did you get this information from? After Old Master asked, Bei Yunj said without blushing, Brother Shida gave it to me. Sing Su. Old Master was stunned for a moment before he nodded. Shida, thank you. Sung Su, you can go back first. I have something on later. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, Sung Su felt that this was not good. He insisted on following Bei Yunj downstairs. He wanted to see Bei Yunj get into the car before he could leave in peace. What are you waiting for? Can you repair your relationship with Guer? Old Master glared at Qin Luyan angrily. Qin Luyan regained his senses from the memory of Bei Yunj, pulling his hand away just now and nodded in understanding. I'll send Guer off. In the hall. Bei Yunj licked her red lips. Hearing Sing Su's noisy voice, she couldn't help but move away from him. But halfway there, Bei Yunj's consciousness suddenly blurred. Very soon, when Qin Luyan saw that something was wrong with Bei Yunj, he immediately strode forward. Sing Su turned around and widened his eyes. Miss Pei. The next second, the people in the hall saw their refined and noble young Xiao carrying a little girl in his arms. Chairman Qin, let me send Miss Pei to the hospital. Assistant Wu, go get the car. After Qin Luyan finished speaking, he glanced at Sung Su indifferently with a hint of warning in his dark eyes. Assistant Sung suddenly reacted. She almost forgot that the three brothers of the Qin family were not easy to deal with, especially when it came to Bei Yunj. Next, Qin Luyan looked up and snorted softly. His magnetic and pleasant voice was mixed with disdain and mockery. Why? Do you want to learn from your master and overstep your boundaries? Assistant Sung was speechless. Indeed, Chairman Qin had been unhappy with Master Du for a long time. His sister was only close to a man who was not related to her by blood. This was the shame of having a sister complex. Seeing Qin Luyan take Bei Yunj away, Assistant Singh hesitated. Pay. Fortunately, Chairman Qin was her biological brother. Even Sing Su, who often followed Huashidu around, was occasionally stunned by Qin Luyan's gaze. A person like Qin Luyan would become very terrifying as long as he was given time. End of chapter. Chapter 944. In the car, Bei Yunj frowned in a daze and could not help but scratch her neck. Qin Luyan looked down and saw from the corner of his eye that Bei Yunj's snow-white neck was red. He immediately grabbed her hand. Are you allergic? Qin Luyan frowned. He remembered that Mrs. Qin had an allergic constitution, but this did not happen to him and Qin Yu. Then, Qin Luyan leaned over and touched Bei Yunj's forehead with his forehead. He realized that Bei Yunj was no longer having a normal fever. The temperature was frighteningly high. However, in the conference room just now, Bei Yunj did not show it at all. She just did not say anything after that. President Qin, you'd better not be so close to Mississippi. What if Miss is contagious? Assistant Wu frowned. Qin Luyan glanced at him coldly. You can find someone to hand over your work in 2 days. President Qin. Assistant Wu froze in disbelief. He had been by Qin Luyan's side for a long time. Qin Luyan did not explain at all. He only saw Bei Yunj look up at him with her eyes half open. It was as if she did not know what to say. Qin Luyan restrained the emotions in his eyes and only rubbed her head. He chuckled softly, and his voice was unbelievably gentle. Sleep for a while. Brother is here. Bei Yunj looked down and thought of Qin Luyan's dim gaze in the conference room just now. She closed her eyes, but did not fall asleep. In the hospital. She's only sent here when she has such a high fever? If it was any later, she would have turned stupid from the fever. The attending doctor chuckled. The girl's eyelids twitched. Then she looked up at the doctor slowly. It was the first time the doctor felt threatened by the patient on the bed. Just a high fever? Qin Luyan asked. The doctor reacted. And allergies. This girl is quite capable. It's so serious, but she doesn't feel anything? Bei Yunj was speechless. In her previous life, Bei Yunj had not fallen ill for more than 20 years, so she indeed could not react properly. Let's put her on an 4 drip and observe her for another day. After the doctor finished his examination, he said, the young lady has to stay here today. Do you want her family to accompany her? No need. Yes. Bei Yunj and Qin Luyan said at the same time. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. The 3 of them turned around and saw a handsome man in a black double-breasted coat and a suit walking over. His beautiful peach blossom eyes were cold, and his short black hair was slightly messy and loose in front of his forehead. Compared to his usual noble and abstinent temperament, he had a bit more of a wolf's nature. It was obvious that he had rushed over. Bei Yunj leaned against the soft pillow behind her. She curved her eyes and met Huashida's gaze. Seeing that Bei Yunj was awake, the chaotic emotions in Huashida's eyes gradually calmed down. President Hua, I have something to tell you. Qin Luyan looked up at Huashidu. The tension between the 2 men grew stronger. Huashida glanced at Bei Yunj before unbuttoning a button on his collar slowly. He said calmly, okay. After he left, the doctor looked at Bei Yunj's curved eyes and muttered softly, sigh, no matter how good brother is, he's not as good as brother Qing. Bei Yunj was speechless. Young lady, when your brother carried you over just now, he looked at you without blinking, afraid that something would happen to you. The doctor could not help but speak up for Qin Luyan. Bei Yunj could not be bothered to look up. Are you very free at work? The doctor gave a fake smile. The allergen hasn't been found yet. You must have eaten something that you don't often eat these few days. End of chapter. Chapter 945. I got it. Bei Yunj nodded. Thank you. The doctor could not help but take another look at Bei Yunj. He had thought that she was an elder young miss with a bad personality. He did not expect her to be all right apart from having a bad temper. Pay attention to your diet. After reminding her, the doctor could not help but want to see the battle between the 2 men at the door. Such a scene was rare. After the doctor left, Bei Yunji's eyes moved, and she remembered what she had eaten these few days. Ever since she was arranged to be treated by Cui Hengchuan. Cui Hengchuan had sent her a grade 1 psychotropic drug some time ago. In the past few days, Bei Yunji had taken it once. Perhaps she was allergic to the drug. Outside the door. I don't want to beat around the bush with President Hui either. Actually, I've wanted Goer to go home for a long time. Qin Luyan stood in the stairwell and said calmly, "It's my fault that I didn't take good care of Yunyan. But if she goes back with President Qin, I'm afraid President Qin won't be able to understand the little girl's temper." Huashida lit a cigarette and rejected Qin Luyan's request easily. With President Hu's personality, he would never take in a girl for no reason. Even if she's a friend's sister, this reason is ridiculous. Qin Luyan's indifferent tone was slightly mocking. "I'm not Qin Yu. Do I want to know what President Hu means? Or does President Hu not plan to return her now?" The man tapped the cigarette with his fingertips. After a while he said slowly, "Then what if I change my tone? I want to ask President Qin for her. Is that okay?" Qin Luyan paused. Indeed, he had never thought that Huashidu would say it so directly. Seng Su arrived and saw Bei Yunji deep in thought in the ward alone. "Miss, you're awake? Are you all right? How are you?" Bei Yunji regained her senses. "I'm all right. I'm just a little sleepy." She had just taken some medicine and fell asleep easily. "Where's Master Du?" Seng Su asked. Bei Yunji said without thinking, "He's chatting outside." "With who?" "Qin Luyan," Bei Yunji said. Seng Su was speechless. It was obvious that this ancestor had not realized that it was easy for troublesome accidents to happen when those two people were together. "Miss Pei, are you angry with Master Du? For the past few days, Master Du has been preparing for old Madam's birthday. He has even prepared your gift. I reckon that when the time comes, he will bring you to the old house to stay for a while." Seng Su said uneasily. Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows. She didn't quite understand why Seng Su asked that. "Am I angry? This morning, Master Du's attitude towards you." Seng Su was deeply worried. When he called Master Du to report about Miss Pei, he could almost feel Master Du's nervousness at that time. Bei Yunji thought for a moment and suddenly smiled. "That seems to be the case." Seng Su. So Miss Pei had never thought of getting angry from the start. However, looking at Bei Yunji's current state, Seng Su felt that his year-end bonus was no longer guaranteed. Soon, the person who entered was Huashidu. Before Seng Su could speak, he caught a glimpse of Huashida's gaze and immediately said sensibly, "I'll go and ask the doctor about Mrs. dietary restrictions. I'll buy some food for Miss Pei." After Seng Su left, Huashidu walked over and bent down. He reached out and touched Bei Yunji's forehead. Bei Yunji did not move. She could smell the man's pleasant and cold scent. "Your temperature hasn't cooled down yet. You'll be fine after sleeping." Huashida's gaze darkened, and he retracted his gaze. End of chapter. Chapter 946. "Brother, your hand is so cold." Bei Yunji shrank her neck in front of Huashidu, but her eyes were curled up lazily. It was obvious that she did it on purpose. When Huashidu heard Seng Su say that Bei Yunji had fainted and rushed over, he was indeed in a sorry state. On the other hand, Bei Yunji only thought of the man rushing over in the wind and snow. It was engraved in the deepest part of her heart. "I'm sorry. Brother, be careful next time." Huashidu quickly let go of her hand. "It's snowing outside?" Bei Yunji did not pay attention to the window either. Now her eyes refused to leave the man's body. "Yes." Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows and felt that the man was a little pressured. She watched as Huashidu reached out to help her adjust the blanket. Suddenly she smiled and said, "Brother, it seems to be red." With that said, Bei Yunji followed his gaze and looked down at the red patches on her hand. "There's ointment on the table." Bei Yunji leaned back. Her gaze was lazy, but her eyes were so clear and seductive. Huashida's pale-colored eyes glanced at her. His slender hand picked up the ointment. After opening it, his deep and lazy voice sounded, "Give me your hand." Bei Yunji naturally placed her hand on the man's iron suit pants. Not long after, the cold ointment was applied on her hand. "What did you talk about when you went out just now?" Bei Yunji asked casually. Huashida's well-jointed hand held a cotton swab and carefully applied the ointment on the little girl. He said casually, "He said that the next time you fall sick, he will tear down my company." Bei Yunj did not take it seriously and said, "I thought that he would not let me live with brother." "Why? Do you think I'm old?" Huashida looked up and wiped some ointment on her face. Bei Yunj. Was this D*Imin man becoming more and more unreasonable? Sing Su's words were fleeting in her mind, and he sounded quite righteous. "You were the one who didn't want to see me this morning." She originally thought that Huashidu would continue to say something, but she did not expect the man to be silent for a moment and reply in an abnormal manner. "Yes, it's my fault. I won't let anyone take Union away in the future." Huashida looked straight at her, a little secretive. He curled his lips and reached out to scratch her chin. "I don't feel at ease leaving it to anyone." This was the first time Bei Yunj realized that this man, who always looked casual and carefree, could actually be nervous and uneasy. He would think that it was his fault and apologize to her. "The back of my neck is also itchy." Bei Yunj licked her lips and suddenly said. When Huashida heard this, his clean and beautiful hands gently parted her long hair, revealing the back of the girl's fair and dazzling neck. The man's eyes suddenly darkened. Following the girl's loose collar, he inadvertently peeked at the girl's flawless back. Huashidu was still adjusting his emotions. His eyes were dark and unfathomable. Suddenly, the girl rubbed against his neck gently and itchily. Bei Yunj curled her lips and deliberately rubbed the ointment on her face on the man's good-looking jawline. "Brother, Sengsu doesn't know that I like that grayish-green long coat." These few days, it was probably because she had been doing high-intensity scientific research missions. Yesterday, she had stayed up all night to collect evidence from the Angel family. She did not notice that something was wrong with her body, so she inevitably had a high fever. "This is the allergy medicine you asked for, young lady." The doctor handed the medicine to Bei Yunj and looked at Bei Yunj strangely. "Do you know what you're allergic to?" End of this chapter. Chapter 947. "Thank you, doctor." Bei Yunj didn't say anything else. The doctor was speechless. This was the most difficult patient to communicate with he had ever seen. After the doctor left, Bei Yunj called Si Qingyan. "What's the special ingredient in the medicine Cui Hengchuan sent me?" "What's wrong?" Si Qingyan asked instinctively after reading these papers with a dark expression. When he heard Bei Yunj's voice, he asked instinctively, "I'm a little allergic." Si Qingyan was surprised. "Allergic? I heard that this medicine has been prepared for a long time. Its safety is not high on the market. Only 1 in 10,000 cases might be allergic." Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. "What are you trying to say?" "That's not it either." Si Qingyan smiled. "However, it will take a lot of time for the research institute to develop a new medicine. Have you been well recently?" Bei Yunj licked her lips, her voice still a little hoarse. "I don't know. Actually, ever since she stayed by Huashida's side, she rarely lost control. But recently, her situation had worsened." "Then you're allergic to this medicine. It's better not to take it first." Si Qingyan frowned. "After all, there are only a few test subjects. I'm afraid there might be other side effects." "Okay, I'll hang up first." Bei Yunj's perfunctory tone was obvious. After hanging up, Bei Yunj glanced at the allergy medicine in her hand and stuffed it back into her pocket. After being hospitalized, Bei Yunj was brought back to the Hua family's old mansion. As soon as she entered the hall, she saw Wen Jiawan playing with Momo. When Momo saw Bei Yunj, his eyes lit up. "Sister!" Alas howled and jumped onto Bei Yunj excitedly, circling Bei Yunj nonstop. "Why did you gain weight again?" Bei Yunj pinched Alas's cheek, but Alas licked her face and almost fell to the ground. Seeing this, Momo immediately went up and wanted to carry Alas away with all his might. "Alas, calm down. You're not a 60-kilogram puppy anymore." Bei Yunj, who felt that her life was threatened. Wen Jiawan. After finally coaxing Alas away with snacks, Bei Yunj glanced at Wen Jiawan in the living room. "I heard that you were sick, and Master Du took care of you for a long time," Wen Jiawan suddenly said, her tone a little sour. "Yes," Bei Yunj answered calmly. "Doesn't Miss Pei find it troublesome to stay at Master Du's place?" Wen Jiuwan pursed her lips. Bei Yunj glanced at Wen Jiuwan and suddenly smiled. Her eyes were bright and moving. It's good that it's not troublesome to do certain things. Wen Jiuwan did not react for a moment. When she did, her entire body froze. Bei Yunj. Wen Jiuwan seemed to have flown into a rage out of humiliation, and her face was a little red. Yes. Bei Yunj responded naturally. Do you know what it means to be reserved? Wen Jiuwan gritted her teeth. This girl was simply destroying Huashida's image in her heart with her own hands. Reserved. A hint of interest flashed across Bei Yunj's eyes. She suddenly walked closer to her and lazily reached out to pick out her slender black shoulder strap. The snow-white shoulder strap and the black shoulder strap formed a strong sensory stimulation that made people blush, and their hearts beat faster. But brother likes people like me. He also likes to play exciting games with me. Bei Yunj smiled lazily, her clear eyes unruly. When Jiuwan's face turned red, and she threw the thing in her hand over. You're hopeless. Bei Yunj caught it and realized that it was a box of fever medicine. P.S. Thank you for our little friend's votes. Master Pei's votes are quite good. At the beginning of the month, he still needs your monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 948. However, just as Bei Yunj was playing with the box of medicine, a man's voice suddenly sounded from behind her. Yin Yun. Bei Yunj's hand paused and the medicine fell to the ground. She did not know how long the man behind her had been here. Bei Yunj picked up the medicine and turned around to see the man not far away. The other guests had also come down from the empty living room on the second floor. Brother, Bei Yunj called out. When Huashida had just entered, he had caught a glimpse of this young lady teasing him mischievously. Those words entered his ears neither lightly nor heavily. Come here. Huashida reached out to her. Bei Yunj walked in front of him without thinking. Among the people who came downstairs was Xia Luqing, who had appeared before. That man is... Xia Luqing's eyes were filled with amazement as her heart pounded. Huashidu. When Jiuwan glanced at Huashidu, and also saw Yu Hanran, who had followed them in, she retracted her gaze unnaturally. The CEO of the Hua Corporation? Xia Luqing could not help but feel her heart beating wildly. However, when she saw the girl beside Huashida clearly, her expression turned ugly. Bei Yunj. Why was she here? Downstairs. Bei Yunj stood on her tiptoes and sank her fingers into the man's short black hair, scattering the snow on his head. Although he was so handsome that he could appear on the cover, the living room was warm. When the snow melted, he would not feel so good. Yu Hanran, who had more snow on him than Huashidu, was speechless. Huashida stretched out his hand lazily and pressed Bei Yunj's head. Before anyone else could think, this was the young CEO of the Hua Corporation who did not get close to women. They saw him take off his scarf and put it around the neck of the young lady in front of him. It's cold, Bei Yunj gasped. Her neck accidentally touched the outer circle of the scarf. The man curled his lips in a good mood. He rubbed the inner circle with his fingers and helped her put it on. We'll go to the second floor later. Don't go to the balcony to take in the wind. Understand? In the distance, Xia Luqing's gaze was gloomy as she watched this scene. She quickly smiled and said, No wonder Miss Wen has liked Master Du for so many years. You know? After when Jiuwan asked with a frown, she realized the identity of this person. She reckoned that when she first got in touch with the Wen family, she had already found out the ins and outs of everyone in the Wen family. Don't worry, Miss Wen. The Xia family is on the Wen family side. I won't do anything to harm you. Xia Luqing smiled generously, but there was a trace of jealousy in her eyes. Wen Jiuwan was the most beloved eldest daughter of the Wen family, compared to Bei Yunj, who returned to the Qin family at the age of 17. Qin Wanru had a halo around her since she was a child, which made others envious. Actually, I also think that Master Du and Miss Wen are a match made in heaven, Xia Luqing said with a smile. Who knew, however, when Jiuwan glanced at Xia Luqing and turned around to say faintly, Is that so? Why do I feel like I deserve this unrequited love? Xia Luqing choked for a while, then smiled and said, There must be a special reason why Miss Wen likes Master Du so much. Because he's the best-looking man I've ever seen. Wen Jiuwan retracted her gaze and ignored Xia Luqing. She walked straight down. She disdained to play tricks to fight for a man. This was something that only fools would be proud of. Xia Luqing looked at Wen Jiuwan's back. Her eyes were gloomy and she sneered. Wen Jiuwan glanced at Yu Hanran. When she saw him turn to look at her, she immediately turned around and left in another direction. End of chapter. Chapter 949. After going downstairs, Wen Jiuwan caught a glimpse of Bai Yunj sitting on the sofa. Everyone else was wearing suits and leather shoes or gowns. Only she was still wearing a simple sweater. That woman, stay away from her. Bai Yunj glanced at Wen Jiuwan and said slowly. Bai Yunj had glanced upstairs just now. Xia Luqing looked at Wen Jiuwan with an unfriendly gaze. Why? Wen Jiuwan asked. Bai Yunj continued to play the game with her head lowered. No reason. Thank you for the medicine. Wen Jiuwan was a little unnatural. I'm just thanking you for saving me last time. Otherwise, in such a gray area, if she was taken any messy photos, it would have a great impact on the Wen family. Wen Jiuwan was stubborn. I didn't say that I would give up. Bai Yunj did not say anything and continued to play. Then, Wen Jiuwan could not help but ask, where's Huashidu? I don't want to tell you. Wen Jiuwan was speechless. This person would definitely not be able to make any friends. Bai Yunj suddenly laughed. He went out. There seems to be a gathering. You're letting him go alone without a female companion. When Jiuwan was in disbelief, Bai Yunj said naturally, isn't there Yu Hanran? When Jiuwan was speechless, something seemed wrong. Then, Yu Manran, who was drinking champagne beside her, choked on it without any effect. She thought of the last time Yu Hanran accompanied Huashidu to the banquet in female clothes. Okay, this disgusting memory came back. Not long after, the living room was lively. Old Madame Hua and a few old ladies of similar age sat together and chatted. She also saw many young and beautiful ladies from wealthy families. Many old ladies teased old Madame Hua and asked old Madame Hua to take the opportunity to arrange a blind date banquet. However, old Madame Hua only smiled and said, Shidu has his own ideas on this matter. If it were any other time, old Madame Hua would definitely take the opportunity to agree. But now, old Madame Hua's attitude clearly showed that she already had a candidate she liked. The old madam of the Wen family pursed her lips and was a little unhappy. The other old madams also felt that it was a pity. Everyone, including the noble ladies, had dressed up beautifully today. Wasn't it all to attract the attention of the young master of the Hua family? Pei, Grandma has candy here. Old Madame Hua liked Bai Yunj very much. When she looked at Bai Yunj, her eyes curved into crescents. Bai Yunj felt everyone's gaze on her. Bai Yunj gave up on the game and walked up to old Madame Hua expressionlessly. Look, I bought this in Neely last time. Mo loves it too. Old Madame Hua stuffed a large box of candies into Bai Yunj's hands. Bai Yunj nodded. Thank you, Grandma. The others immediately looked at each other, especially the appearance of the girl in front of them. The word outstanding could no longer be used to describe her. Her delicate eyebrows were bright and lively. The corners of her eyes seemed to be curved but not curved. However, her pair of clear and beautiful eyes carried a hint of laziness. This is the girl of the Qin family, Bai Yunj. Old Madame Hua happily introduced her to everyone. Suddenly, a voice beside her interrupted. I heard that Miss Pei seems to have taken a leave of absence. She took a leave of absence in her 3rd year of high school. Everyone turned their heads and saw Xia Luqing walking over with a smile. She tried her best to smile amiably, but her eyes were filled with arrogance. These words were obviously meant to embarrass Bai Yunj. Take a leave of absence? Why didn't I know? Old Madame Hua frowned and was a little displeased with Xia Luqing's words. End of this chapter. Chapter 950. Miss Pei is also 19 years old, right? Xia Luqing held a glass of champagne in her hand, and her voice entered everyone's ears with a thought-provoking smile. 19 years old and still in high school. Wasn't it obvious that she had repeated her studies? Moreover, this girl had repeated her studies and even took a leave of absence. Was she crazy? When Jiuwan frowned. Xia Luqing. This woman was simply using her status as a member of CI7 to commit crimes. Xia Luqing was also very disdainful of a timid young lady like Wen Jiawan. She chuckled and did not feel guilty. I'm sorry, I just wanted to know more about the guests. Maybe I know too much. Bei Yunj glanced at her leisurely, and then turned to look at old Madame Hua. She did take a leave of absence. Why? Old Madame Hua had a headache. Originally, she was preparing to find connections to either send her to Yunqing University or Beichuan University. There's nothing to learn, Bei Yunj said without thinking. Old Madame Hua. The way the others looked at Bei Yunj also changed. Could it be that the Hua family had taken a fancy to such a young madam? But this was too useless. How could such a person secure her position as the young madam of the Hua family? Xia Luqing could not help but laugh, as if she had vented her anger. However, I will take the college entrance exam. Bei Yunj looked at old Madame Hua and comforted her. Old Madame Hua did not know what to say. She was afraid that she would say something that she should not say and destroy this child's confidence. Then there should be no problem. Old Madame Hua forced a smile. Bei Yunj. But you don't look like there's no problem. At this moment, the other old madams also took the opportunity to laugh. Actually my granddaughter's grades have always been good. She scored dozens of points in the college entrance exam last year. Old Madame Wen smiled but did not say anything. Then, someone immediately mentioned the Wen family. Wen Jiawan graduated from Yunqing University, right? Old Madame Wen smiled. Yes, this child has been good at studying since she was young. Everything else is average. Unlike your Zhou, he graduated from the best music academy in our nation. The old madams were showing off the results of their family's juniors. Only old Madame Hua's expression was slightly stiff. Actually, an outstanding junior like Shidu really needs a suitable match. A young madam said meaningfully, who doesn't want their descendants to be smarter? I don't want to inherit some messy genes and become stupid. But he didn't expect that. These words made old Madame Hua's face darken. She smiled and said in a gentle yet intimidating voice, I'm not worried about anything else. I'm just afraid that some of the younger generation will also have a crooked stick and learn the harshness and ignorance of their elders. These words directly stabbed the madam who had just spoken, causing her face to turn red and green. The people present could also see that old Madame Hua really liked this girl. Fortunately, the old madam's birthday banquet was tomorrow. Otherwise, it would be really embarrassing if the birthday banquet ended up like this. Bei Yunj looked at old Madame Hua and unconsciously smiled. I'm just taking a break from school. When the college entrance exam comes, I'll go to whichever school you want me to go to. Hearing this, old Madame Hua was very touched. Regardless of whether the little girl could get in or not, at least she had the heart to make her happy. Xia Luqing's eyes were full of ridicule. Of course, old Madame Hua wants you to get into the best school. P.S. Are there no children voting? Master Pei's ranking is dropping. Pinch your face. Did the children vote for the monthly vote today? End of this chapter. Chapter 951. Old Madame Hua's voice turned cold. Whose junior is this? The atmosphere suddenly froze. The old madam was obviously unhappy. Xia Luqing's smile froze. She did not expect that her sarcasm towards Bei Yunj not only did not make the old madam dislike Bei Yunj, but she also disliked her. I brought Xiaoqing here. Old Madam Wen had a dignified smile on her face. She's an intermediate member of CI7. She was also the one who found the contact for Higgins' artificial intelligence project this year. Old Madam, on account of this, don't lower yourself to the junior's level. Old Madam Hua only glanced at Old Madam Wen indifferently. Pei, go upstairs and accompany Mo for a while. I'm afraid that he'll be disobedient again. Bei Yunj could tell that the old madam was sending her away. Okay. When Bei Yunj went upstairs, a young boy happened to walk in from the door. Sister. When Huai frowned and said unhappily, didn't I tell you not to find me a tutor anymore? They can't teach me anything at all. When Jiawan laughed. You still don't like him? He's a physics professor I met in our nation. He's an associate professor at Neely University. That's just as though. When Huai finished speaking angrily, suddenly, he caught a glimpse of the person upstairs and his entire body froze. Why did that person look so similar to the assistant professor of Yin University's junior class? Wen Huai subconsciously wanted to go upstairs, but was stopped by Wen Jiwan. Nonsense! You can go up to the second floor? Wen Huai realized that he had recognized the wrong person. How could the immortal assistant professor of Yin University's junior class appear here? He was wrong. Wen Huai scratched his head with an annoyed expression. Then what kind of teacher do you want? Don't you usually complain that your progress is too slow? Wen Jiwan asked. Wen Huai was a student of Beichuan's junior class. After the competition with Yin University's junior class, the entire class crazily told Beichuan to go to Yin University to snatch him. I want the assistant professor of Yin University's junior class, Wen Huai said honestly. The assistant professor of Yin University's junior class? Wen Jiwan frowned. Sigh. I heard that she's not even a student of a professor at Yin University. She's just a teaching assistant that a professor at Yin University found through his connections. The more Wen Huai spoke, the more jealous he became. She's only 19 years old, and she's especially good-looking. At this moment, the others remained silent. Everyone knew that the young master of the Wen family was a student of the Beichuan junior class and was extremely smart. Then what kind of deity was the 19-year-old teaching assistant that the young master was talking about? A 19-year-old teaching assistant in the junior class? Old Madame Hua's scalp tingled when she thought about it. Suddenly, Xia Luqing smiled and said, If young Master Wen wants to meet her, perhaps I can help you check. Really? Wen Huai asked. I'm not free today. I have an appointment with an important person to meet with old Madame Hua. Xia Luqing smiled and said, We should be able to find out in 2 days. Thank you. Wen Huai's blood boiled. A while after old Madame Hua left, Wen Huai heard the ridicule and disdain of others. They seemed to be discussing a girl who had dropped out of school. In her hall, Miss Xia is really amazing. She joined CI7 at such a young age. In the hall, there were people praising Xia Luqing nonstop. Everyone could see that the Xia family was now a third-tier family in Yuncheng. With Xia Luqing around, it was only a matter of time before they stood in the second tier. In the future, they would soar. Old Madame Hua, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to target Miss Pei. I was just a little surprised. End of this chapter. Chapter 952. While Xia Luqing was waiting for the video call, she tried to make her presence known to the old madam. However, the old madam did not even look up. This made Xia Luqing's eyes gloomy. She smiled casually and said, If the Hua family and the Wen family join forces, Higgins will definitely choose us. Old Madam Wen could not help but chuckle. Old Madam Hua doesn't like our Chunshin, but you should know that someone does. Old Madam Hua glanced at Old Madam Wen and did not say anything. Back then, the Fernandes family had taken a liking to the Wen family and had taken advantage of them in the overseas market. They were indeed complementary to the Hua family's resources. However, Old Madam Hua was already so old. She only cared about whether her juniors would be happy in the future. Wouldn't it be child's play for the adults to interfere in the love of the juniors? Old Madam Hua said calmly. If Shida likes her, she's the first priority. Old Madam Wen's face darkened. Soon, the video conference was connected. The person on the other end obviously did not expect that the other party would be a group of madams from wealthy families. Boss Nia, I'm Qing Lu. Xia Luqing smiled faintly. After seeing the person beside him, Nia Yu's expression softened. Miss Qing Lu. This is old Madam Hua. And this is old Madam Wen. After Xia Luqing introduced the few famous madams, she smiled and said, Actually, I invited you for a video call this time because of an artificial intelligence project that you have. The corporations behind these madams all like your project very much. Madams, I'm afraid you don't like my project, but the person in charge of this project. Nieyu laughed. This time, the person in charge of Higgins' project had invited Marcus from the Institute of Computational Technology in our nation, as well as the recently rumored heir of Higgins Corporation. It was said that he was from country A. However, there was very little information about him. Boss Nye, You should know that if you want to find a powerful ally in country A, everyone here is suitable. Xia Luqing knew that Nieyu treated her specially, but she did not expect that Nieyu would not give her preferential treatment in this matter. I can't make the decision on this project. Everything is arranged by eldest Mississippi, Nieyu said. Moreover, eldest Miss hates businessmen who sell technology, but don't know anything about scientific research. These words made the expressions of everyone present did not look too good. Who would study scientific research for the sake of a scientific research industry? How about this? I happen to have a set of professional materials here. If you ladies really want our project, you can let your teams try and see if they can bite this hard bone. Nieyu smiled. Young Miss hopes to find companions, not a team that only knows how to throw money at you. After saying this, the faces of the madams on the scene turned green and red. After hanging up the video call, Xia Luqing looked at the information sent by Nieyu. Her face was stiff, and she did not know how to solve the problem. Half an hour later, almost all of the research teams of these major corporations were at a loss when it came to Higgins' questions. I can't even understand this. What's the point of asking me? The madams looked at their own disappointing team and were about to go berserk. Xiaoqing, how should we solve this? Old Madam Wen gritted her teeth. She wanted to settle this before Huashidu, and the rest found out about this. Xia Luqing suddenly saw Bei Yunj coming downstairs. She seemed to have thought of something and smiled again. A strange glint flashed across her eyes. Old Madam, leave it to me. P.S. If you have a lot of monthly votes today, why don't you add an update? Pinch face, end of chapter. Chapter 953. Xia Luqing was extremely confident. No one knew who she had called to arrange this matter. When Jiwan frowned, she had a feeling that Xia Luqing was targeting Bei Yunj. Then, she turned around and was about to say something to Wen Huai when she realized that he had disappeared. Bei Yunj had just poured a glass of water when she heard Mo, who was holding the railing with both hands, say to Bei Yunj in a childish voice, "Sister, so what books should I read to become better?" Other than her poor grades in Chinese, Mo's other subjects could be said to be impeccable. After all, this was Huashida's biological younger brother. Bei Yunj thought for a long time and reported a few books in the original language. Mo ran back to her room excitedly and looked for the electronic version. When Jiwan frowned subconsciously, the few mathematics books that Bei Yunj had just reported were all professional books. Mo was at the right age to read these books? Master Pei, don't you think those books are too difficult? Yu Manran whispered beside Bei Yunj. Yu Manran was originally a physics major in university. However, under the destruction of professional knowledge, she resolutely decided to transfer to the music major. Bei Yunj glanced at her. It's just a few basic books. Yu Manran. She felt that her IQ had been mocked. On the stage, Xia Luqing sneered disdainfully. How can a repeat student be so interested in mathematics books? I've met someone who likes to memorize the names of a few books, so that she can use them to flatter herself. A few people mocked behind her. TSK, let her introduce them in detail. Don't embarrass her. Master Pei, have you really read these books? Yu Manran asked hesitantly. She had heard a little of what those people had said just now, especially that Xia Luqing. It was obvious that she was a troublemaker. I haven't read them, Bei Yunj said slowly. How could she have so much time to read books that were not suitable for her? Yu Manran. How dare you recommend it to Mo? You can't even understand it, yet you want to show it to other children? Half an hour later. The question has been solved. Xia Luqing saw the message on her phone and could not help but smile. She immediately walked towards the old ladies. Old Madam Wen was overjoyed. Really? Who did it? Someone from the Qingchong Center. Xia Luqing smiled and said, They said that I can probably get around 70 points. Qingchong Computing Center. I heard that this computing. The old ladies were all excited. Then, old Madam Wen asked calmly, It should be difficult to invite people from such a pure research institution, right? I know their leader, so it won't be difficult. Xia Luqing smiled and said, Moreover, The person who came up with the questions this time is also the director's disciple. That was why everyone was so interested in the declining Higgins group's new project. That was the project that Mr. Marcus was in charge of. Miss Xia is really outstanding. She has such courage and connections at such a young age. Someone kept praising her. Then, old Madam Wen could not help but ask, "Can you invite him over?" "Of course." Xiao Luqing smiled. "I've already invited him here. Coincidentally, he should be very familiar with Miss Pei." End of chapter. Chapter 954. Are you very close to Gu? Old Madame Hua asked. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and glanced at Xiao Luqing calmly. I don't know. She knew many people in the Qingcheng Computing Center. Wasn't Hong Chongjin, one of their directors, hospitalized because of her anger? Old Madame Hua didn't say anything until someone came in late. Miss Xia. Cheng Zihuai was dressed in decent clothes and looked handsome, attracting the attention of many people. Student Cheng. Xiao Luqing's eyes lit up. She didn't expect Hong Chongjin's student to look like this. This is a member of the Qingcheng Computing Center? Old Madam Wen asked. Cheng Zihuai turned around and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, I'm Cheng Zihuai from the Qingcheng Computing Center. I'm also a freshman at Yin University. Only a freshman? Everyone was shocked. The person who could solve such a question was only a freshman. I'm not busy with my studies in the third year of high school, so I had the chance to get to know teacher Hong Chongjin. Cheng Zihuai's tone was cold, but he was obviously confident in his ability to be able to say that he wasn't busy with his studies in the third year of high school. He was definitely a top student. Then, Cheng Zihuai didn't expect to see Bei Yunj when he turned around. You're here too? Cheng Zihuai inexplicably felt a ball of anger in his chest. He hated the person in front of him and had an inexplicable emotion. He hadn't seen Bei Yunj for so long, and her appearance had clearly become more unfamiliar, but it was as if no matter what, she could still affect his heart. Bei Yunj only looked at him indifferently and raised her eyebrows slightly without saying anything. This made Xiao Luqing frown. Why was there something wrong with the news? Didn't they say that Bei Yunj had actually liked Cheng Zihuai for a long time? But Bei Yunj didn't seem like someone she liked at all. Old Madame Hua is indeed kind. No wonder student Pei thinks that as long as she has someone to rely on, she can be impudent. Cheng Zihuai pursed his lips and suddenly mocked her. Everyone present could tell that there was a grudge between Cheng Zihuai and Bei Yunj. What are you saying, student Cheng? Why do you have to say this in front of old Madame Hua? Xiao Luqing seemed to be trying to stop the fight, but her eyes were gloating. Cheng Zihuai sneered. You'll have to ask Miss Pei. She was really amazing to be able to force Qin Youjiao out of the country after returning to the Qin family for 2 years. Miss Pei is really someone who cannot tolerate sand in her eyes. After saying this, everyone on the scene sighed, as if they had heard some incredible gossip. So that fake daughter was forced to leave. Thousands of thoughts ran through everyone's mind, and they also felt that this was very likely. After all, Qin Youjiao was an outstanding socialite in the industry back then, but this real young lady, at best, he was just lucky to have been reincarnated. With such a real daughter, who couldn't compare to a fake daughter in any way, the Qin family was like a joke. Bei Yunj glanced at him unhurriedly and suddenly sneered. She called out slowly, Eris. A large Alaskan dog ran down quickly from upstairs and only went to Bei Yunj's side. Cheng Zihuai subconsciously took a step back. Howl! Eris circled around Bei Yunj and barked excitedly. Bei Yunj smirked. Good child, be quiet. Eris really stopped barking. He only tilted his head and kept rolling and rubbing against Bei Yunj's legs. At this moment, Bei Yunj said slowly, Student Cheng, have you learned it? When someone says to be quiet, you should at least shut up. P.S. Including the extra chapters mentioned yesterday, there are 3 more chapters. Our monthly votes have been a little low recently. If there are more votes, continue to add more. Chapter 955. As soon as she finished speaking, the atmosphere in the room froze. Cheng Zihuai's face darkened. Was Bei Yunj comparing him to a dog? You. Before Cheng Zihuai could say anything, Xia Luqing noticed old Madame Hua's displeasure and immediately smiled. In our opinion, student Cheng is very talented. I wonder if student Cheng has ever thought of joining the group's research team? These words were meant to flatter Cheng Zihuai, and she also hoped that old Madame Hua would not be too protective of Cheng Zihuai. Cheng Zihuai regained his composure, but his tone was cold and mocking. Of course. However, the Qingcheng Computing Center is on good terms with the Wen family, so I don't think there's any other choice. Everyone knew in their hearts that he had chosen the Wen family. The teacher said that he would help me win Higgins's project this time. When Cheng Zihuai said this, his gaze swept over Bei Yunj with a hint of mockery. However, Miss Pei is so resourceful. Perhaps you can also try these questions. Cheng Zihuai had long heard that Bei Yunj had dropped out of school for no reason, and for more than half a year, he had been working hard in the computing center day after day. He was no longer on the same level as Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj just sneered and sat on the sofa to tease Alas. Then, Zihuai, quickly send these questions up. Xia Luqing glanced at Bei Yunj, and could not help but smile as she said to Cheng Zihuai. Cheng Zihuai heard this, and quickly sent the content up. Hong Chongjin was also involved in this. However, to his surprise, Nieyu sent him a voice message. Xia Luqing could not wait to open it. Everyone heard it clearly. Her smile gradually stiffened. Miss Xia, I think you might have misunderstood. This is just a simple test foundation. Marcus's request is all correct. Only students in school need to look at the scores, and real research cannot tolerate any mistakes. In an instant, Cheng Zihuai's calm face also disintegrated, and his expression instantly turned ugly. What? That test had to be all correct. Suddenly, Cheng Zihuai heard a soft sneer. He quickly turned around and gritted his teeth. Bei Yunj. Student Cheng, if you can't do it, isn't there still an old one? Bei Yunj was playing leisurely, but he was still arrogant. Old Madame Hua. Could the old Yunj was talking about Bihang Chongjin? Everyone present suspected that Cheng Zihuai would explode on the spot, but fortunately he endured it. Bei Yunj, if you are really that capable, then you should help the Hua Corporation win this project. Cheng Zihuai sneered. If he couldn't do it, then Bei Yunj was even more unworthy. Xia Luqing agreed. Yes, Miss Pei and Zihuai were in the same high school, and are about the same age. Since Miss Pei dared to quit school, and felt that there was nothing to learn, there should be no problem with the foundation test, right? Actually, Cheng Zihuai didn't finish the paper by himself. Hong Chongjin even helped him a little. After removing the water, Cheng Zihuai's accuracy was only about 50%. Bei Yunj glanced at the unread messages, and only smirked casually. It doesn't seem fair. These words made Xia Luqing think that Bei Yunj was afraid. For Miss Pei to be valued so highly by the Hua Corporation, she must be extremely talented. We are also looking forward to Miss Pei's performance. Xia Luqing was intriguing. Since she had already said this, if Bei Yunj didn't agree, he would be mocked by the crowd. End of this chapter. Chapter 956. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and scanned her surroundings. She glanced at Wen Jiawan, who was trying. Wen Jiawan, can you lend me your computer for a while? Wen Jiawan was stunned for a moment before she handed the computer to Bei Yunj. This computer belonged to Wen Huai. The others looked at Bei Yunj and did not know what she was up to. Was she really going to try this test? Xia Luqing's eyes were filled with ridicule. A student whose grades were so bad that she could repeat a year wanted to solve Higgins's test. She was simply dreaming. Miss Pei, do you think you're better than a professional from the computing center like Zihuai? Xia Luqing looked at Bei Yunj, who kept typing on the keyboard, and burst out laughing, as if she was joking. The people around felt that Bei Yunj was deliberately flattering herself. Me? Of course I'm better. Bei Yunj curled her lips and said lazily, her eyes arrogant and presumptuous. Cheng Zihuai subconsciously looked at her coldly, but he did not have time to mock her. Bei Yunj returned the computer to Wen Jiawan. Thank you. It had only been about 10 minutes. How could she solve it so quickly? Xia Luqing could not help but cover her mouth and snicker. Miss Pei can't solve it and has given up? The others were also discussing softly. Suddenly, old Madame Wen laughed. Old Madame Hua indeed dotes on her grandson. So much so that she doesn't have any requests. Old Madame Hua was about to say something when Xia Luqing's phone suddenly vibrated. When Xia Luqing picked up the call, she heard Nieyu's voice. Congratulations, you've passed the test. I wonder which company's team made this test. Instantly, Xia Luqing's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. What did you say? Nieyu frowned. Mr. Marcus just saw it, and felt that these questions were solved very cleverly. He wants to know which team it is. Everyone present heard it clearly. Cheng Zihuai clenched his fists and his pupils constricted. He subconsciously looked at Bei Yunj. How is this possible? And Mr. Nia, is it possible that these questions were leaked? As soon as Xia Luqing asked this question, old Madame Hua's gaze turned cold. She completely disliked this woman. How dare they target Bei Yunj and the Hua family? The other party seemed to be silent for a long time before saying in a low voice. These questions were set by Mr. Marcus. I can leak them, but no one can. I'm sorry, Mr. Nia. I didn't mean that. But, Xia Luqing's face turned red. She happened to look at Bei Yunj, who was smiling faintly. She gritted her teeth and said, It's the Hua Group's research team. Can I speak to her on the phone? Nieyu could not help but ask. Marcus had said that although these questions were the basics, but even he might not be able to think of the solution to this answer sheet. Xia Luqing took a deep breath, but her fingernails had already sunk into her flesh. She walked in front of Bei Yunj, and smiled as if nothing had happened, but she was still gritting her teeth. If Miss Pei asked someone else to do it, even if she won this project, she would be exposed. With that said, Xia Luqing turned on the speakerphone. Hello, may I know who you are? Bei Yunj, she said lazily. When the other party heard the name, she seemed to fall into a long silence. Nieyu's mood instantly reached a freezing point. She put on a fake smile and asked, Why did you do this question? Was the research not enough for her to play with? She was still playing with them now. For the first time, President Nia wanted to beat his boss. P.S. Ahem, it's late but it's here. There's one more chapter. End of this chapter. Chapter 957. Do you think the Hua Corporation still has this chance? Bei Yunj rested her head on one hand and asked with curved eyes. Nieyu wanted to curse. Could she be any more shameless than getting in through the back door openly? Didn't they agree to be fair and just? He took a deep breath and hung up the phone. Then, Bei Yunj's phone rang. She glanced at the familiar number and immediately hung up. However, the owner of the phone number continued to call crazily. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and went upstairs with her phone. She did not forget to say calmly, Grandma, he said that this project is ours. Old Madame Hua was speechless. Everyone was speechless. For some reason, they felt that President Nia knew Bei Yunj. They also felt that the identity of the girl in front of them was not that simple. Meanwhile, Cheng Zihuai stood where he was and looked at Bei Yunj, who did not even look at him when she went upstairs. He clenched his fists and his face turned green. He felt his face burning. How did Bei Yunj get everything right? Zihuai, can't you tell? Bei Yunj and President Nia's relationship is not ordinary, Xia Luqing said thoughtfully. Then can we get this project? Cheng Zihuai asked. Xia Luqing's face stiffened. Then, she gritted her teeth and sneered. Zihuai, Higgins has more than one project this year. Just wait and see. After Xia Luqing and Cheng Zihuai left, Wen Jiuan was deep in thought. Until Wen Huai interrupted her thoughts. Sister, where's my computer? Here. Wen Jiuan returned the computer to him. But suddenly, Wen Huai immediately stood up, giving Wen Jiuan a fright. Sister, this question, you did this question. Wen Huai asked in disbelief. Wen Jiuan asked instinctively, What question? It's a question left behind by our school's professor. I've been trying to solve it for half a semester, but I still can't solve it. Someone actually solved it. When Jiuan paused, she remembered that when she gave it to Bei Yunj, it seemed to be blank at this moment. When Huai couldn't wait to take a picture and send it to the professor and class group. In an instant, it caused an uproar in the class group. as well as the attention of the professors. When Huai went out to answer the call, when he heard the professor's praise, he couldn't hide his excitement. At the same time, he was also asking him, who came up with the idea of solving the problem. After the chat ended, Wen Huai could not wait to hold Wen Jiwan's hand. Sister, you're amazing. It wasn't me. Someone else solved it. Wen Jiwan retracted her gaze. Someone else? Wen Huai was stunned. Wen Jiwan suddenly thought of something. Do you know Bai Yunj? Bai Yunj? I don't know, but it sounds a little familiar, Wen Huai said hesitantly. Then I don't think so. Wen Jiwan turned around and asked. She was really crazy. She almost suspected that Bai Yunj was the teaching assistant of Yin University's junior class. Upstairs. What's wrong? Bai Yunj drank water and sat on the carpet, looking at the rabbit lantern that Momo had sent her last time. You're going through the back door and breaking the rules, Nieyu said impartially. Yes, in order to make my elders happy, I can only do this. Pei Qinghan smiled lazily. Nieyu was speechless. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up first. Remember to send the contract to the Hua Corporation. Bai Yunj did not forget to remind him at the end. However, after hanging up, Bai Yunj lowered her eyes and saw red spots on her body. She was allergic again. End of chapter. Chapter 958. Bai Yunj took out the box of allergy medicine from the drawer. After thinking for a moment, she took out 2 more pills and drank them with water. Although Cui Hengchuan had called her and told her that the chances of her relapse were very low, and that she shouldn't take the medicine anymore. Perhaps if he ate too much, the side effects would be more than just allergies. However, Bai Yunj did not want to cause any trouble for the Hua family, especially at such an important occasion like old Madam's birthday banquet tomorrow. That night, Bai Yunj also went to bed early. In the bar. Master Du, aren't you going to drink more? The man who had just returned to China held a wine glass and smiled. Suyu, is this your first day meeting Master Du? Whenever he drinks a little wine, he starts to ignore people. Yu Hanran shook his head. On the other hand, Seng Su remembered the previous drinking contest between Yu Hanran and Bai Yunj. He never dared to tell Yu Hanran that he was actually beaten up by Master Du after he got drunk that time. You guys continue drinking, this meal is on me. I'll head back first. Huashidu held a cigarette between his fingers and spoke in a light and lazy tone. Going back just like that? Siyu found it strange. In the past, when he returned to the old residence to stay, Huashidu was most likely unwilling to go back early. After all, old Madame Hua's desire to have a grandson had never stopped. Suyu, you've been abroad for too long. You still don't know what kind of vixen Master Du has at home. After saying this, Huashidu glanced at him indifferently. Yu Hanran immediately changed his words. Ancestor, I raised a little ancestor. Oh. Suyu's interest was immediately piqued. He didn't expect such a thing to happen. Master Du, when are you going to bring her out for a look? Take a look. However, she did not expect the man to nonchalantly put out the cigarette in his hand. His laziness faded as he looked up and asked, Why? Is it for you to see? Suyu. Did he step on a minefield? Suyu and Huashidu had known each other for so many years, but he had never expected that the person Yu Hanran mentioned would have such weight in Huashida's heart. He did not look like the Huashidu of the past at all. He looked like he had no desires. For the first time in more than 20 years, she realized that Huashidu was also possessive. You guys continue playing. Huashida left with his coat after saying that. Suyu couldn't help but turn his head. Old Han, what's the situation with Master Du's wife? What's the situation? Suyu, listen to me. Don't provoke the one from Master Du's family. Stay as far away from her as possible. In this regard, Yu Hanran was someone who had suffered before. Suyu hesitated. Is her character not good? Yu Hanran smiled. You can't say that about her. Then he continued. It's just that I don't often interact with people. Suyu. This evaluation didn't sound right no matter how he listened to it. After returning to the old house, the lights downstairs were already off. Huashida's night vision was quite good. He did not turn on the lights and walked slowly to the second floor. However, he kept feeling that someone was secretly watching him. But when he turned around, he didn't see anyone. Hoshiru returned to the bedroom. He had just finished showering and was walking to the table to pick up a book when he suddenly heard movement at the door. The man casually glanced to the side and saw the door quietly open, revealing a head. He looked at the little girl in front of him sizing up his room and couldn't help but laugh in a low voice. It was so deep and magnetic that it made one's ears burn. "Child, did you come to my room to steal something?" Not long after, Hoshiru noticed that the little girl in front of him didn't seem to be acting normally. P.S. Thank you children for voting for Master Pei. He is still #1 on the monthly votes list. Are there any more children who want to vote for him? Pinch face. Chapter 959. She was also holding a brown teddy bear that was usually not very favored. Bei Yunji's usual carefree appearance was different. Her clear eyes were emotionless. She only raised her head and looked straight at the half-naked man. The man's figure was very good. His perfect abs and strong waist, as well as his faintly discernible Apollo's belt, almost made people blush. After Hoshiru felt Bei Yunji sizing him up, he casually pulled off a short-sleeved shirt and put it on. "Aren't you going back to sleep?" As soon as he finished speaking, Bei Yunji suddenly pushed open the door, locked it from the inside and walked in. Even Hoshiru did not expect this series of actions. The next moment, he saw Bei Yunji walking straight towards him. She suddenly reached out and hugged his strong waist tightly. The man felt her furry head rubbing against his chest, and his Adam's apple tightened. When he sorted out his emotions, his sexy Adam's apple bobbed, but his eyes turned dark. Yun. The little girl in front of him was indeed not in the right state. Bei Yunji did not let go or answer Hoshiru's question. She seemed to be sleepwalking. However, he had never seen the little girl in such a state before. The man suddenly asked casually, "Do you want to eat fruit?" The atmosphere was silent for a long time. Just when Hoshiru thought that Bei Yunji was unconscious, he heard her speak again. "No." Hoshiru curled his lips. His pale-colored eyes were long and beautiful. Under the light, it was a reflection of day and night. He chuckled softly. His magnetic and hoarse voice was seductive as he dragged out the last syllable. "Does Union like candy or little bears?" If it were any other time, Bei Yunji would definitely stay away from these fluffy toys and scoff at them. But at this moment, the girl said honestly, "Little bears." The smile on the man's lips deepened. He slowly reached out and tapped her head casually. "Then do you like little bears or big brothers?" Suddenly, the atmosphere fell silent. Bei Yunji glanced at Hoshiru. She was a little hesitant, as if it was difficult for her to make a choice. This reaction was also unexpected in the man's eyes. Hoshiru raised his eyebrows and laughed in anger. He did not expect that he could not compare to a stupid bear. He pinched her face punitively. "What do you mean, Union? Did I dote on you for nothing?" Bei Yunji immediately said, "I like Big Brother." "Little liar." Hoshiru smirked. "You even came over to take advantage of me when you were sleepwalking. Huh?" The little girl in front of him looked different from usual, and was indeed cute, but Hoshiru was worried about Bei Yunji's safety. "Go back to your room and sleep?" After Hoshiru asked, Bei Yunji immediately let go of his hand and looked at him with dissatisfaction. The man chuckled softly. He took the girl's hand and squatted down. His eyes were extremely dark, hiding all the light, but it made people's hearts beat faster. His low voice was ostentatious and seductive. "Union, do you like me that much?" The little girl who was sleepwalking was conscious, but she could not read the emotions in the man's eyes. She also squatted down and placed her hands on her knees. She looked extremely obedient, which was a huge contrast to her usual appearance. "Brother, I'll sleep with you." The man's gaze instantly darkened and became difficult to distinguish. The mole on his Adam's apple moved slightly, making people blush, and their hearts beat faster. However, the culprit was looking at him seriously and quietly waiting for his reply. Chapter 960. Half an hour later, Hoshiru looked at the girl sleeping on his bed, then casually retracted his gaze and walked to her side. After coaxing the girl to sleep first, he went to take a shower. However, he did not expect that when he came out, the girl seemed to have fallen asleep. He sat by the bed and caressed the girl's cheek with the back of his slender fingers. It was gentle and ambiguous, and his eyes were half dark. His deep voice was still casual. "Child, is there anything you don't want others to know?" The girl on the bed had her eyes closed. Her exquisite and bright eyes had become more docile. Huashidu gently tidied the black hair by her ear, took a thin blanket, and covered her with it. Then he carefully carried her up. At night, the man carried the girl in his arms and walked through the corridor to another bedroom. Only a small night light was turned on inside. Outside the bed, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. A corner of the dark branches was revealed, and everything was lonely. Huashidu gently placed her on the bed and tidied up the blanket. From the corner of his eye, he saw the medicine on the bedside table. One box was filled with medicine that was not properly packaged. The other box was filled with allergy medicine. The man's eyes darkened. He held the box of medicine that was not properly packaged and noticed the logo at the bottom of the back. Yincheng Pharmaceutical Research Institute. Soon, Huashidu put down the medicine and walked to the balcony to make a call. If Bei Yunj heard it, she would realize that Huashidu was contacting Zhong Shenglin. "Mr. Hua, what happened?" Zhong Shenglin was about to sleep when he received a call from Huashidu. It was a little strange. "What medicine did you prescribe for her?" Huashidu asked straightforwardly. "It's an inhibitory psychotropic medicine jointly developed by the Psychological Research Institute and Yincheng Pharmaceutical Research Institute." After Zhong Shenglin finished speaking, he reacted. "That's not right. Gu is allergic to that medicine. She shouldn't be taking this medicine anymore." Allergic? Huashidu also remembered that Bei Yunj had a high fever and was hospitalized for allergies. Yes, she only discovered her allergy a while ago. This girl should have stopped by now. "Don't worry," Zhong Shenglin responded. Zhong Shenglin had actually told Huashidu many things, but Bei Yunj did not know yet. "She's still taking the medicine." Huashidu's eyes were so dark that they couldn't be seen clearly, and his voice was emotionless. "Has she been in a bad condition recently?" "It's not that bad." Zhong Shenglin was also puzzled. "Previously, when her condition was unstable, I didn't see her insist on taking this medicine. Why are you still taking this medicine when you know that you're allergic?" As soon as he finished speaking, Huashidu's index finger moved slightly, as if he knew the reason. It happened to be old Madam's birthday banquet in a few days. "Mr. Hua! Mr. Hua!" Zhong Shenglin shouted a few times before Huashidu came back to his senses. His pale-colored eyes glanced at the girl behind the glass door. "It's fine now. If possible, I hope Elder Zhong can send me a copy of Union's physical test data in all aspects." After hanging up the phone, the man smoked a cigarette on the balcony. When the smell of smoke dissipated from his body, he entered the bedroom. Huashidu picked up the medicine on the table and glanced at Bei Yunj. He subconsciously sat over and pinched the little girl's face, as if he was punishing her. Only then did he get rid of his irritable and funny anger. At the same time, his heart inevitably ached. What kind of environment did a girl have to grow up in to have a shadow of sensitivity and inferiority in the depths of her heart, no matter how outstanding and powerful she was? P.S. There's still a sugar that hasn't been written yet. Let me straighten out the plot first. End of this chapter. Chapter 961. The man took the medicine and was about to close the bedroom door and leave when he suddenly saw Alaskan sitting on the spot in a daze, looking at him with its head tilted. Suddenly, the man curled his lips and slowly opened the medicine box in his hand. When Alaskan saw this, it was instantly agitated. It lowered its voice and whimpered, looking very impatient. It did not doubt human nature at all. Huashidu handed the medicine box to Alaskan and patted its head. He smiled lazily and said, "Bite this tomorrow and let sister play with you." Alaskan whimpered and rubbed against Huashidu's pants before biting the medicine box. The next day, Bei Yunj woke up and did not notice anything strange. If she had to say that something was wrong, it would be that the medicine on the table was gone. She moved her eyebrows and realized that the door was not closed last night. After going downstairs, Bae-yunj saw Hoshida eating and sitting at the side as if nothing had happened. Brother, Hoshida replied unhurriedly. Did you enter my room last night? Bae-yunj probed. However, Bae-yunj seemed to have slept very soundly last night and did not feel anything. Hoshida only glanced at her indifferently and asked slowly, "What's wrong?" "I think I lost something," Bae-yunj said. "What is it?" After Hoshida asked this, Bae-yunj instantly fell silent. She had not told Hoshida about this. "It's not anything important." Bae-yunj held a spoon and scooped the porridge. However, she still felt that only Hoshida would enter her room. Just as Bae-yunj's thoughts were running wild, suddenly, something fluffy rubbed against the side of her leg. She looked down and saw that it was Alaskan. The thing it was biting on looked very familiar. It was her medicine box. At this moment, Alaskan still wanted its owner to play with it and wagged its tail happily. Bae-yunj. All right, the culprit had appeared. What is Alaskan biting in its mouth? Hoshida asked calmly. Before he could look over, Bae-yunj quickly snatched the medicine box from Alyssa's mouth and smiled. There's something dirty outside. Hoshida did not expose her. He only raised his eyebrows lightly. Is that so? Bae-yunj nodded in response. She maintained a smile on her face and did not notice the faint smile on the man's face. Afternoon. Bae-yunj deducted half of the snacks in Alyssa on the grounds that it was healthy to lose weight. Although Momo's heart ached, he also felt that Alyssa had gained a lot of weight after he brought him home. Last time, the doctor had said that if Alyssa continued to gain weight, her lifespan would decrease. He waited until nightfall. Hoshida walked to the long corridor and gave the listless Alyssa some snacks. Your master's temper isn't small either. Hoshida combed Alaskan's fur. Alaskan seemed to be able to understand and whined pitifully. It didn't know that it was taking the blame for this man. At night, the birthday banquet was exceptionally lively. Bae-yunj stood on the balcony on the second floor. Suddenly, she heard hurried footsteps. Mr. Hua. Bae-yunj's eyebrows moved and she looked inside. Butler, are you looking for brother? The butler was stunned for a moment and could not hide the anxiety in his voice. Yes, those people are really here again and want to take little master away. What should we do? Those people? Bae-yunj's eyes moved. End of this chapter. Chapter 962. Brother went out to answer a call. If you have anything to say, tell me. Bae-yunj threw the wine can into the trash can. Miss Pei, I'm not sure about the details. I only know that it seems to be someone from the Tang family in Continent K. Continent K? Bae-yunj knew about the existence of this continent. There were many supranational organizations in it, and they were not bound by any country. Even the Indomitable Music Alliance was established in Continent K. Where's MOMO? Bae-yunj walked downstairs and asked unhurriedly. Miss, the people in Continent K are not to be trifled with. You'd better. Before the butler could finish, she interrupted him. Today is the old madam's birthday banquet. Just maintain the order of the birthday banquet. Yes. The butler was also inexplicably afraid of this girl, who had been brought by Mr. Hua. Bae-yunj was born with a smile. Her eyes were curved, but they were naturally intimidating. It was an aura that did not match her age. Downstairs, Bae-yunj saw that the atmosphere was not right. Everyone was whispering. She took a sip of red wine. Man, Gur, what's wrong? Yumanran was also shocked by the sudden arrival of the person. When he saw Bae-yunj, he heaved a sigh of relief. Help liven up the atmosphere. The banquet continues. Today is a joyous occasion. Bae-yunj placed the wine glass on the table and wiped her hands. Gur, what are you planning to do? Yumanran grabbed Bae-yunj's hand. Wait a little longer. Wait for Master Du to come back. She was worried about Bae-yunj's safety. It's not a big deal. Bae-yunj curled her lips and left the living room. Seeing this, Yumanran could only walk to the piano and play Spring Night Banquet. The atmosphere at the scene was slowly stirred up. On the second floor of another building around the corner, Bae-yunj heard Momo's voice, but she was speaking fluent our nation's language. It was still a childish voice, but it was filled with determination. I'm not Fernan's child, nor am I a child of the Tang family. Old Madam Hua, hiding this child won't do you any good. Besides, Momo isn't related to you by blood. Don't you know that? The people of the Tang family were calm and composed. There were more than 10 bodyguards outside the door. They had indeed come prepared. Grandma, I'm not going with them. Momo was wearing a small suit. He hugged old Madam Hua's neck tightly and whispered, Momo has been by my side since he was 1 year old. He is the biological grandson of the Hua family. Since the Tang family could be so heartless as to abandon her, they shouldn't want to take her back, just because of the family's internal strife. Old Madam Hua also refused to give in. Old Madam Hua, are you refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit? The young woman sitting opposite her sneered and said in a contemptuous tone, You must know that Continent K's resources are far superior to yours. Letting Momo return to the main family is the best choice. In your dreams. Old Madam Hua sneered unmoved. As soon as she finished speaking, the young woman suddenly smashed the cup on the table. It's just the Hua family. Do you really think that the Tang family won't dare to touch them? Actually, the Tang family was indeed afraid. They were not afraid of the Hua family, but Hua Shidu. A few years ago, they had been attacking the Hua family non-stop. In the end, they did not expect that they would retaliate against the Tang family. However, when they investigated Hua Shida's background, they found nothing. Suddenly, a clear and lazy voice sounded. Grandma, the birthday banquet downstairs has started. End of this chapter. Chapter 963. Old Madam Hua did not expect Bei Yunj to come up at this time. Gur, take Momo downstairs first. Before old Madam Hua could finish speaking, the older man suddenly spoke. Old Madam Hua, I came here to discuss with you. It's better for Momo to stay here. More than 10 bodyguards blocked the corridor. Bei Yunj put her phone back and glanced at them leisurely. Then, she smiled lazily and said, Grandma, let me entertain the guests. You can go downstairs first. But, Bei Yunj whispered into old Madam Hua's ear, Go and find brother. Old Madam Hua frowned. She was still worried about Bei Yunj's safety. Gur, you go down first. There are too few desserts downstairs. Grandma, remember to get someone to prepare more. I haven't had dinner yet. Bei Yunj's tone was lazy, but she did not allow anyone to object. Old Madam Hua saw that Bei Yunj's attitude was firm, so she could only purse her lips and prepare to go downstairs to call Hua Shidu before rushing up. However, she did not expect that Bei Yunj would simply close the door to the living room. Who are you? Tang Shi's tone became even colder. Momo held Bei Yunj's hand. No matter how afraid she was, she still coaxed Bei Yunj. Sister, don't be afraid. I will protect you. Bei Yunj smiled and hugged Momo to her side. Her tone was casual, but she could not hide the coldness in her voice. When are you going to get lost? This was also Bei Yunj's bottom line. The old madam's birthday banquet was interrupted just like that. How dare you? Who are you? How dare you speak to us like that? Tang Shi and the rest's gazes turned cold. They did not expect that there would be someone in Country A who dared to provoke their Tang family. Bei Yunj's bright eyes were unrestrained. Her deep eyes seemed to be bloodshot, but she lowered her eyes to hide her cleanness. She licked her lips and asked slowly, What's wrong? You want to fight? I won't abide by the rules of Country A. If you dare to stop us, you can see if you have the life to do so. Tang Qian was arrogant and her eyes were cold. She picked up the gun and pointed it at Bei Yunj. However, the older man beside her felt that this girl was not simple. I'm Tang Weiming, ranked 5th in Continent K's Tang family. Little girl, do you know what kind of existence our Tang family in Continent K is? Tang Weiming narrowed his eyes. She wanted to pressure Bei Yunj. Continent K has its own rules. Aren't you afraid of offending people by coming to our Yin city to snatch people? Bei Yunj's lips suddenly curled into a smile. She stood up and walked over to Tang Shi in a few steps. Tang Shi subconsciously pointed the gun at Bei Yunj, and her gaze turned cold. Bei Yunj sneered and pressed her chest against the muzzle of the gun. Miss, do you think we don't dare to open it? Tang Weiming asked coldly. It was the first time she met a girl of this age who was not afraid of death. Yes, Bei Yunji's eyes were wild and unruly. She said slowly and playfully, "If you touch me, the Tang family will be buried with me." "You." Tang, she was instantly enraged. She gritted her teeth and loaded the gun. But unexpectedly, suddenly, a red ray of light was pressed against her chest. Tang, she was stunned and her body stiffened. Tang Weiming also came back to her senses. "What's going on?" Your head." The subordinate's face turned pale. Tang Weiming happened to glance at the mirror beside her and found that there was also a red dot on her forehead. It was a long-range gun, and it was aimed at them. The dozens of bodyguards around them were also aimed at. End of chapter. Chapter 964. Just as Tang she was panicking, she suddenly heard the sound of a helicopter's propeller outside the window. "Hello everyone. I'm the captain of the Falcon team from Country A's 1st District." Lu Zhongzhou's voice came from the balcony through the electric current. "As for the lady inside, don't tell me you want to try and see whose gun is faster?" This time, the Tang family completely reacted. The person outside was a soldier from this country. "Who exactly are you?" Tang Weiming gritted his teeth and glared at Bei Yunji with red eyes. His face was slightly distorted. He didn't expect that one day he would fail in such a small task. Tang Xi's hands also stiffened. After hearing those words, she almost couldn't hold the gun. Bei Yunji glanced at him slowly. His eyes curved as he asked unhurriedly, "Are you qualified to know?" These words made Tang Weiming and Tang Xi's expressions extremely ugly. However, it had only been 10 minutes since Bei Yunji walked in, and so many people from the country had appeared. This proved that Bei Yunji's identity was not simple. At the same time, someone broke through the door and entered. "Miss Pei, are you alright?" "I'm fine." After Bei Yunji answered, he held Momo's hand and let him out of the door. At the door, old Madame Hua was a little surprised by this situation. When she saw Bei Yunji, she came back to her senses. "Who are these people are?" "Grandma, bring Mo downstairs. I still have some things to deal with." Bei Yunji didn't say much, but old Madame Hua could also sense that these people knew Bei Yunji. "Okay, come down early too." Old Madame Hua could only nod. "Okay." "What's wrong with these people? They don't look like people from our country." Lu Zhongzhou narrowed his eyes and sized up those people. "Yes, they're from the Tang family of Continent K." Bei Yunji looked at Tang Weiming and the others who were tied up and escorted downstairs. "What continent?" Lu Zhongzhou's body instantly froze. "Continent K, the Tang family." Bei Yunji reminded him gently. "Lu Zhongzhou, how did this ancestor offend the people of Continent K?" Even he didn't know much about the independent forces in Continent K. Did he offend a force from Continent K without even leaving his house? Lu Zhongzhou took a deep breath. "Bei Yunji, the forces in Continent K are no joke. You should be more careful next time." "Will it give you a lot of trouble?" Bei Yunji asked. Lu Zhongzhou was stunned for a moment. His hand, which was wearing a black leather glove, caressed Bei Yunji's head. "Your age and your talent are the hope of our country, eh? No one wants anything to happen to you. Uncouth people like us have never seen any amazing scientists in our lives, so we also want to see you reach the top. Being able to protect you is also a merit that we can take out." Back then, the higher-ups had originally discussed sending Bei Yunji to Neely University to receive the highest level of education and let Lu Zhongzhou and the others protect her. However, they never thought that Bei Yunji's growth would exceed everyone's imagination. The 19-year-old Physics Prize, the 19-year-old Busaka nomination. Bei Yunji's results had turned the academic circle upside down. However, they were also careful and signed an agreement with some people in the academic circle not to disclose her age to the public. In other countries, the academic circle also avoided having anything to do with the political circle. Of course, there were very few undercover scholars. No matter how young the other countries guessed, they probably never thought that her real age was only around 20. Lu Zhongzhou had just escorted her downstairs when he heard someone calling Bei Yunji. "Yun Yun." The man's voice was pleasant and familiar to Lu Zhongzhou. He turned around and was stunned when he saw Huashida's face clearly. Brother. Bei Yunj had just walked up to Huashidu when she saw him holding her favorite cake. Huashida handed the cake to Bei Yunj. It looks like there are guests at home. Bei Yunj took the cake bag. Before she could speak, she heard Lu Zhongzhou probe. Sir, have we met somewhere before? Lu Zhongzhou had been to Continent K on a mission. He seemed to have seen this person there before, but he could not be sure. We have indeed met before. I saw you in the war zone. The man looked elegant and noble. He was wearing a black suit and a long coat. His temperament was light and lazy, and his pale-colored eyes were indifferent. Lu Zhongzhou hesitated. Is that so? God, Lu, isn't your method of investigation too old-fashioned? The team member beside him said. Lu Zhongzhou hid his panic. What nonsense are you talking about? I just think that Mr. Hua is too handsome, and I'm afraid that Miss Pei will be deceived. The team member muttered. Who in the war zone doesn't know that you and God Tan raised Miss Pei as a daughter? Washida's face was indeed too aggressive. His temperament was ascetic and cold, but his pair of peach blossom eyes could make people blush. The scumbag vibe of a refined scum was vividly reflected on him. What nonsense are you talking about? Lu Zhongzhou was interrupted by his team member and forgot his original thoughts. Not long after, Huashida knew what had happened and was not in a hurry to interrogate the people from Continent K. Instead, he arranged for a separate living room and invited Lu Zhongzhou and the rest to have a cake with Bei Yunj. After all, their identities were special. In the room, Huashida's slender index finger tapped the cigarette between his fingers as he narrowed his eyes and watched the video in the living room. When he saw Tang Shi pointing a gun at Bei Yunj, he bit his cigarette lazily. The cigarette but instantly turned scarlet red and spat out a circle of white smoke. However, in the eyes of Tang Shi and the rest, the man's careless appearance was the prelude to danger. Master Du, Zhou Yu rushed over and nodded slightly at Huashidu. He did not look at the Tang family. Huashidu, the Tang family will not let you off. If you dare to touch us, the Tang family will definitely avenge us. The woman shouted in a sharp voice. Huashidu only raised his eyes slightly and glanced at her indifferently. He sneered. Zhou Yu, ask her to call the Tang family. Yes. Under Tang Shi's flustered and guarded gaze, Zhou Yu took out her phone and called the Tang family. Qian, come back quickly. Tang Shi wanted to ask for help, but the words were stuck in her throat. She could not help but look at the man not far away. She had an ominous feeling. Dad, what's wrong? Tang Shi's voice trembled slightly. At home. The Tang family is finished. The Tang family is completely finished. The middle-aged man on the other end of the phone sounded pained. I shouldn't have provoked him. Now, the Tang family is going to be gone. Tang Weiming's body stiffened. What did you say? Brother? Weiming, I can't protect the Tang family anymore. Beg Huashidu and ask him to give us a way out, okay? Take it that brother begs. Before he could finish speaking, the call was hung up. End of chapter. Chapter 965. Zhou Yu put his phone aside. Miss Tang, I've explained the situation to you. You. Tang Shi's entire body was trembling. It was obvious that the man in front of her had long been prepared to touch the Tang family. She gritted her teeth. Huashidu, I'm Momo's aunt. The Tang family is Momo's family. If you do this, Momo will hate you. The man looked up at her. His pale-colored eyes were devoid of desire, and his emotions could not be discerned. Tang Shi subconsciously swallowed her saliva. Let me go. Tie her up and throw her into the police station. With that said, Huashidu put out the cigarette in his hand and ignored the screams inside. He pushed the door open and left. However, he did not expect to see a small figure in front of him when he lowered his head. The boy looked exquisite and tender. He looked at him with his big obsidian-like eyes. Huashida slowly squatted down and looked at him casually. He flicked Momo's forehead with his index finger. What are you doing here? Momo rubbed his forehead that did not hurt and tiptoed to hug Huashida's neck. Brother, don't tell me you don't want Momo anymore? He sniffed and his voice was soft and uneasy. I worked very hard to learn Chinese, and listen to brother and grandma. I will protect you when I grow up. The man reached out to pull the child away, and gently wiped away the tears on his face. Is that so? You even made the Chinese teacher leave in a fit of anger. Mo. Who else did you kiss this morning? Huashida slowly reopened the score. Mo's small body froze. Before Bei Yunj returned last night, Mo had promised Huashidu with his dignity as a man that he would not secretly kiss Bei Yunj. However, this morning, Mo thought that Huashidu was not around and hugged Bei Yunj coquettishly, so he took the opportunity to kiss him. He even said bad things about his brother. Go downstairs and eat cake. The man rarely carried the little guy personally. Mo leaned on the man's shoulder and muttered, Brother, you are my most important family member. I don't want others to hurt you. Not even the Tang family, Huashida said slowly. Then don't skip class. Mo, downstairs. Bei Yunj sent Lu Zhongzhou and the others off. She held the cake in her hand and had already prepared a draft in her heart. She was going to explain it to Huashida later. After all, some of the guests had seen Lu Zhongzhou's sudden arrival. How could Huashida not be suspicious? When Bei Yunj thought of this, she subconsciously turned her head. She almost bumped into the man. Bei Yunj looked up and saw Huashida clearly. Her expression did not change. Brother. Huashida glanced at her, and his gaze landed on her cake. He slowly picked up a small spoon and dug out a piece to taste it. The man raised his eyebrows. It's too sweet. Bei Yunj hesitated. This is mine. She had also used this spoon just now. Huashida glanced at her leisurely and scooped another spoonful of the cake in Bei Yunj's hand. Open your mouth. What? Bei Yunj was about to speak when she was suddenly fed a spoonful of cake. The sweet taste of cake and sweet fruits spread on her taste buds, making her feel happy. However, Bei Yunj was stunned by Huashida's actions. Bei Yunj. Alright, this man must have thought that she was unhappy because he ate her cake. At the thought of this, Bei Yunj suddenly noticed something, and the way she looked at Huashida changed slightly. She subconsciously took a step back and asked tentatively, Brother, did you drink? End of chapter. Chapter 966. Huashida paused for a moment because of Bei Yunj's retreating action. Then he unconsciously licked the tip of his itchy teeth and asked lazily, What? Bei Yunj looked at Huashidu and recalled how Huashidu had snatched her cake. Alright, he had really drunk. No wonder he didn't look for trouble with her or ask her anything. Who told you to drink? Yuhanran again? Bei Yunj's pretty eyes narrowed slightly as she put the blame on Yuhanran. What's wrong with drinking? Huashida found it funny. Just as he was about to take a step forward, Bei Yunj took a step back. The man looked up casually and met Bei Yunj's eyes. Suddenly, the man took a step forward, and Bei Yunj quickly took a step back. They returned to their original distance. Huashida looked at the little girl who was openly avoiding him and said, Yun, come here. Brother, I'll get you something to sober you up. Bei Yunj did not want to be alone with Huashidu in such an occasion. But in the next moment, Bei Yunj was suddenly grabbed by someone. Before Bei Yunj could shake him off, the person behind her lost half of his strength and pressed down on her. The man held her wrist with one hand and bent down. His low and magnetic voice softened her heart and made her heart tingle. Yun, brother has a headache. Bei Yunj stopped moving. Yu Hanran, who was drinking champagne not far away, also saw this scene. He muttered softly, TSK, Master Du is good. You're even better at pretending than me. After Yu Hanran finished speaking, he felt Bei Yunj's cold gaze from afar. What kind of gaze was that? How had he offended this ancestor? After Bei Yunj retracted her gaze, she could only lead her people to the back garden. She prepared to bypass the crowded places and directly bring her up to the second floor. Is Master Du drunk? When Jiwan asked subconsciously, What are you thinking? Who dares to force him to drink? Yu Hanran said calmly. Hearing this, Wen Jiwan's gaze fell on him and did not move away for a long time. Yu Hanran put on a fake smile. I didn't. Wen Jiwan came back to her senses and looked at the man supported by Bei Yunj. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. Then he is. pretending to be drunk and taking advantage of a young lady. Yu Hanran was obviously an experienced person. However, when Jiwan's body froze and her expression turned ugly, the man she adored was an unreachable flower in her heart. How could he? When Jiwan blushed and pursed her lips. Miss, when a man is a man, in front of the person he likes, he will only be an ordinary person. Yu Hanran knew very well what Wen Jiwan was thinking. There was a deep look in his eyes. Everyone has desires. Wen Jiwan's heart skipped a beat. When she turned her head with a stiff neck, she happened to meet his deep eyes. Not long after, Yu Hanran watched as Wen Jiwan fled. He sneered and continued to drink. In the north stairwell, Bei Yunj helped the man to the balcony on the second floor. Bei Yunj saw that the man was still well-behaved today, and was not like last time. She heaved a sigh of relief. The man was also thinking, why did Bei Yunj look so afraid of him drinking? Suddenly, Bei Yunj pinched his face with both hands. She seemed to be holding a grudge. Don't you think you're in danger when you're drunk? After acting like a hooligan, he lost his memory. This was the first time the man's face was pinched. Looking at this young lady's bold behavior, she was relying on the fact that he would not remember when he was sober. Chapter 967. He did not stop the little girl's dangerous actions. He only raised his thin eyelids and asked ambiguously, "Is your alcohol tolerance not good?" After Huashida finished speaking, Bei Yunj suddenly remembered that this man had whispered into her ear in the back of the car. It was ambiguous and touching. Bei Yunj subconsciously paused and quickly retracted her hand. After a while, she looked up at Huashidu again and asked tentatively, "Brother, are you really drunk?" She felt that the man's attitude today was a little strange. However, when Bei Yunj subconsciously met the man's eyes that were filled with deep and shallow light, as well as his half-hidden dark eyes, that explicit gaze was the same as the way the man looked at her the last time he was drunk. "I'll go get you something to sober up." Bei Yunj quickly stood up and went to the room to get something to sober up. The man was also thinking why the little girl was so afraid of him after he drank. 10 minutes later, Bei Yunj walked back. "I don't think there's a usual drink to sober up." "Okay." The man looked up and saw that the little girl was a little distance away from him. His voice was lazy and light. "Yun, come and lean on me for a while. Isn't there a rattan chair? I'm cold." After the man finished speaking, Bei Yunj looked at him for a long time before saying something and entering the room again. "I'll go get a blanket." Not long after, Bei Yunj came over with a blanket and threw it to Huashidu from afar. She kept a distance. The man's thin eyelids moved. After a while, he picked up the blanket with his well-jointed hands. "This blanket is dirty." Bei Yunj looked at him. "Give me another one." Bei Yunj. A few minutes later, Bei Yunj threw another blanket to him expressionlessly. "Whose is this?" the man asked leisurely. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. She felt that this man liked to cause trouble for her after he was drunk today. "It's mine. It's still dirty." Huashida slowly spread out the blanket and said unhurriedly. Bei Yunj calmed herself down and walked towards him. She asked patiently, "Where is it dirty?" When Bei Yunj walked over, Huashida naturally changed his words. "I saw wrongly. Bei Yunj." This was the first time Bei Yunj had encountered such an unreasonable person, and he couldn't get angry. "I'll get someone to buy you something to sober you up." Bei Yunj was about to leave when someone suddenly grabbed her wrist. Before she could react, Bei Yunj was pulled back by this sudden force and bumped into the man's warm and firm chest. "Huashidu." Bei Yunj was still annoyed, but before she could say anything, the man held her hand and looked at the red spot on her hand. "Allergic?" Bei Yunj paused and looked at Huashidu. "Did brother enter my room last night?" Bei Yunj had closed the door last night, but the door was unlocked this morning. Alas, didn't seem like he could open the door himself. Huashida's lips curled up imperceptibly as he went along with her intentions. "No." "Then why is my door open?" "Yun opened it," the man said sincerely. Bae-yun suddenly had a bad feeling. What? Washida leaned against the rattan chair lazily. Union entered brother's room last night. Bae-yun's mind went blank, and she couldn't react. However, she remembered that Si Qingyan had reminded her last time that the side effects of the medicine might not only be allergies. So in sleepwalking, end of chapter. Chapter 968. Bae-yun took a while to react before she turned around and asked, "What did I do when I went in?" After asking, Bae-yun belatedly felt that something was wrong. The man leaned closer and smiled beautifully. It made her blush and her heart beat faster. When she met his dark eyes, it made her heart burn even more. His tone was light, but it made her ears tremble. Union came in and insisted on hugging me. Bae-yun wanted to retort, and felt that this was ridiculous. But in the next moment, a series of very blurry scenes suddenly rushed into her mind. It was her hugging Hoshiru and refusing to let go. Bae-yun froze. No wonder the man looked at her strangely in the morning. "Why didn't you push me away?" After Bae-yun asked, she met the man's fixed gaze. She was afraid that he would say something inhumane again, so she immediately changed her words. "Then, you didn't take my medicine?" The man leaned against the recliner and naturally held Bae-yun's hand with one hand. He replied lazily, "Yes." This dispelled Bae-yun's last suspicion. It seemed that Alisai was really the one who did it. "It's good that you didn't take it." Bae-yun glanced at Hoshiru and quickly looked away. She quietly held his slender and beautiful hand tightly. Suddenly, Bae-yun felt the man behind her suddenly press forward and rest his chin on her shoulder. She turned around and instinctively wanted to push him away. "You." However, the man quickly grabbed her other hand and held both of her hands, gently but forcefully pressing them down. The man's warm breath made Bae-yun tremble uncontrollably. His low and deep voice sounded in her ear, and it was a malicious tease. "Yun, I don't like to be lied to either." His fingers gently rubbed her palm, and he coaxed her helplessly. "Don't always bully me." He sounded a little angry. However, the man still put down his attitude and coaxed her intimately and naturally, as if he was acting coquettishly. Such lethality was simply overwhelming. It caused the defenses in one's heart to crumble. As proud as he was, Hoshiru would also put himself in the lowest position and willingly hand over the authority to coax the girl in his heart. Bae-yun was stunned for a moment. She couldn't stop her heart from beating faster, and she felt a surge of numbness. She hurriedly turned her head back, but her ears were as red as blood. For a moment, she forgot to tell if the man was drunk or not. Seeing how red the little girl's ears were, the man curled his lips and pinched her cute little ears with his jade-like index finger. "Union, are you cold? Why are your ears red?" Suddenly, Bae-yun immediately moved forward and faced the devilish man. "Hoshiru, are you pretending to be drunk?" The man raised his eyebrows and looked at the little girl in front of him. He was a little angry. Big brother has a secret. Hoshiru looked at her for a while and casually tidied up the blanket. He smiled slowly and said, "Last night, Union came to my room and said that she wanted to sleep with brother soon." Before Hoshiru could finish speaking, Bae-yun instinctively reached out and covered the man's mouth. She felt that if he continued speaking, she wouldn't want to see his face again tomorrow. But in the next moment, Bae-yun suddenly felt as if her palm had been swept by a feather. Just now this man kissed her hand and heart. At this moment, Bae-yun immediately retracted her hand. Her ears were burning and her expression was about to crack. End of this chapter. Chapter 969. At this moment, Bae-yun's uncontrollable heartbeat disrupted her rationality. A certain wire in her mind seemed to have been burned and short-circuited. "What are you doing?" However, the man's low laughter was hopelessly sexy. His peach blossom eyes curved gently, and the corners of his upturned eyes were seductive. His posture was lazy and ostentatious. When Bae-yun instinctively looked up, fireworks happened to rise into the sky. It cast a shadow on the man's handsome face, making him look even more distinct. Light flowed in the depths of his deep, indistinguishable eyes, like the interplay of day and night. After a while, Pei Qian continued to question him without much confidence. "Kiss me." However, the man suddenly pressed forward, his voice casual and joking. Where do you want me to kiss?" Bei Yunj suddenly stood up, her hair standing on end. Her hands were still stiff. She glanced at Huashidu and left the balcony. She looked like she was fleeing. On the balcony, the man's deep and magnetic laughter made people blush, and their hearts race. It was lazy and sexy. At the Computing Institute. "Professor C, is there something wrong with our teacher recently?" Jasmine and Tich hesitated for a while before asking Si Qingyan about this. "What's wrong?" Si Qingyan glanced at them through the screen. They still had to teach Bei Yunj's students because they lost a bet. "Recently, teacher has been distracted. When we call her after we finish the questions, she can't even hold her teacup properly." Tich added, "Oh right, teacher has only been using her left hand to write recently." "I see." Si Qingyan narrowed his eyes and looked at them. "Haven't you thought that this is because she still can't accept the fact that you're her students?" Jasmine. "Tich. She even outsourced her own students' education. Do you think her heart aches for you?" Just as Si Qingyan finished speaking, someone slapped his head from behind. "Si Qingyan, I asked you to help me change the topic, and you have to say a few bad things about Guer?" Zhong Xinglin had just finished a meeting and came back angrily with a folder. "What's wrong with you? Why are you so angry today?" Si Qingyan rubbed his head and cut the video. "It's all because of the decision maker this time. What was wrong with him? It's fine if you want the National Defense Research Institute and the Physics and Chemistry Institute to send people to participate in that experiment. But you also want our Computing Institute to send people?" Zhong Xinglin was furious. "Do all of us have nothing better to do? Also, those guys from the Physics Department and the National Defense Research Institute are the professionals. Why should we join in?" After that, coincidentally, she heard someone greeting her in the corridor outside. "Yunj, how's the third project going?" "It's almost over." Bei Yunj's voice sounded from outside the door. Then, Zhong Xinglin and Zhong Xinglin saw Bei Yunj walk in wearing a white coat. It was very leisurely. Zhong Xinglin. Si Qingyan was speechless. There was really someone who was very free. Suddenly, Zhong Xinglin suspected that the National Defense First Research Institute had planted some spies in his institute and deliberately made him send people out. "Guer, let's come over to discuss something." Zhong Xinglin waved at her. Bei Yunj glanced at him and quickly walked in front of them. "What's wrong?" "Well, we have a talent nurturing plan," Bei Yunj said leisurely. "I'm not going." Indeed, he had kicked an iron plate. Zhong Xinglin racked his brains. "But this plan involves a very important experiment." End of this chapter. Chapter 970. This is an experiment in District 1. Zhong Xinglin glanced at Pei Yunj and glanced at the door before he said, "It's a tacit understanding that the experiment in District 1 is to prepare for war." "War?" Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. Zhong Xinglin said, "This is not a war between countries, but it is equally important. In the borderless area, there are international criminal gangs that need to be arrested. There is also the alliance agreement between the continent and Continent K. Although it is peaceful coexistence, there are actually conflicts every year. Their Laboratory 191 has a history of hundreds of years since the World War." "Let me think about it." Bei Yunj thought about Huashida's side. It was not easy to explain. Zhong Xinglin also knew that Bei Yunj was willing to consider going because of Lu Zhongzhou and Tan Nan's team. The higher-ups had also made the right decision. Bei Yunj had always been amenable to coaxing but not coercion. If they forced her to go, the laboratory would probably be destroyed by her. But now Bei Yunj had a lot of feelings for Lu Zhongzhou, Tan Nan, and the rest. Considering the safety of Lu Zhongzhou and the rest when they carried out missions in the future, Bei Yunj would help. After returning, Bei Yunj thought that she would discuss this matter with Huashidu. She estimated that it would take some time before Huashidu agreed. However, She did not expect Hoshidu to agree to her request without asking much. However, he also had a request. He had to let the chauffeur take him home during the weekend. District 1. Bae-yeonj came here again. She did not deliberately dress in bright and eye-catching clothes like last time. Instead, she wore a simple shirt and sweater with a blue cotton jacket. Her black hair was loose and curly, but her eyes were still exquisite and beautiful. After getting out of the car, Bae-yeonj also saw a few girls checking their passes at the door. Not far away. "Miss, your passes." After the girls left, the guards could not help but discuss excitedly. "Look at this group of girls, they are too good-looking. They look so fresh. It's been a long time since such good-looking girls came to the district. They are actually all scientific researchers. Aren't the girls in our literature and art department also very pretty?" Another person rolled his eyes. "I feel that the leader of our Ministry of Arts is the one who is beautiful. How could anyone compare to her?" Before he could finish his sentence, a clear and unhurried voice sounded from the door. "Hello, I'm here to participate in the experimental special training." When they turned around and saw the girl in front of them, their eyeballs almost fell to the ground. Was he also a researcher? In this day and age, why were girls who engaged in scientific research more beautiful than celebrities? Miss, are you from the experimental training class? Excuse me, do you have a pass?" "Yes." Bae-yeonj found the card that Jung Shunglin had given her. Class A access. Before the astonishment in the gatekeeper's eyes could fade away, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. "Please come in." "Thank you." Bae-yeonj took the pass, thanked him and left. After Bae-yeonj left, the gatekeeper turned around and looked at his partner in disbelief. "What's going on? The experimental training class has an A-level pass? That's impossible, right? Just now the First Research Institute of the Ministry of National Defense also had a B-level pass." That person frowned. "It's true. That person seems to be from some computing institute." "What? Now the people from the computing institute are also participating in this experiment?" On the way, Bae-yeonj followed the pass and did not expect to be stopped by someone. "Hey, young lady?" Bae-yeonj turned around and saw an old man in a singlet and pants repairing a car. End of chapter. Chapter 971. Very soon, Bae-yeonj was about to leave. "I don't know how to. Find someone else." The old man in the vest. Very soon, the old man put down the wrench and hurriedly put on his coat. He stopped Bae-yeonj. "Little girl, do me a favor. Help me find a few people. This car can't be fixed. I have to get someone to push it back." "Can't you go and find someone?" Bae-yeonj glanced at her watch. Seeing that she was going to be late, she immediately walked around him. "Little girl, are you so blind? Do you know who I am?" The old man saw that Bae-yeonj was stubborn and instantly became anxious. No one in the entire district disobeyed him like this. Bae-yeonj gave him a few red notes and maintained her little patience. Okay, you're good. Someone will come later. Let him help you." Elder Chu, who was being stuffed with money for the first time, was speechless. "Little girl, aren't you curious about my true identity?" Elder Chu was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. He really wanted to know which research institute taught her. Bae-yeonj chuckled and happened to glance at the white armband on his coat. "Cooking team?" Bae-yeonj raised her eyebrows and was a little surprised. However, Elder Chu noticed that Bae-yeonj was looking at the coat he borrowed and immediately explained, "I'm not a cook. Actually, I can give it a try." After saying that, Bae-yeonj took off her coat and walked towards the car. This made Elder Chu swallow the second half of his sentence. He squatted beside Bae-yeonj and realized that Bae-yeonj was very skilled in repairing cars. "Little girl, your family runs a car repair factory?" Elder Chu was curious. "Bae-yeonj?" "No," Elder Chu asked again. "Why did you lie to me just now?" "Because I don't want to help you repair it," Bae-yeonj said lazily and was quite honest. Elder Chu was speechless. Which research institute was this little rascal from? 10 minutes later, Bae-yeonj stood up. Her hands were covered in black gasoline. "It's fixed." Elder Chu looked at Bei Yun strangely and immediately went to test the car. He realized that this old car had actually been fixed by her. "All right, little girl. What's your name?" Elder Chu could not help but ask. "Bei Yunj." Bei Yunj smiled and got into Old Master Chu's car. "Old Master, can you send me to a place?" A few minutes later, Bei Yunj arrived at the assembly point. The special training here is divided into classes 1 and 2. You still have to go to class 1 if you have the chance. Do you understand? Elder Chu reminded. Usually, those who can enter the laboratory are class 1 students. Elder Chu, you're in charge of the meals for the special training class, right? Bei Yunj turned around and asked. Elder Chu gradually reacted. This guy helped him repair his car. Did he think that he was in the kitchen? Elder Chu suppressed his urge to scold him and put on a fake smile. Of course. Not only was he in charge of the kitchen in District 1, but he was also in charge of all the commands in District 1 to District 3. After Bei Yunj got out of the car, Elder Chu did not forget to remind him. Don't just come in and waste your time. Just be a fill-in. If you can participate in this experiment, there will be many benefits in the future. Okay. Bei Yunj's tone was leisurely and Elder Chu felt that he was being perfunctory. How could there be such a young man who was so unambitious? Elder Chu took a deep breath and casually entered the office in the building. The captains inside were stunned. They did not expect to see Elder Chu here. They instinctively stood up and wanted to bow. However, they saw Elder Chu frowning and calling the Special Training Department. Hello, Special Training Department? Later, there's someone who's late. Let her report to Class 1. Everyone's eyes widened. Elder Chu was personally helping someone get in through the back door. End of chapter. Chapter 972. Who had such a big face? The captains pricked up their ears to listen. The people from the Special Training Department were also stunned. Elder Chu, but the people in Class 1 and 2 are about the same this year. Unless someone from Class 1 is willing to go over. Why are you so troublesome when I ask you to have one more seat? Elder Chu started to get impatient. It's just a matter of moving a table. Will it kill one more person? The people from the Special Training Department could only bite the bullet and say, You're right, you're right. The young lady is only in her 20s. You might need to be patient, Elder Chu said meaningfully. Elder Chu's original meaning was for them to be stricter with Bei Yunj. However, the meaning changed when it landed in the ears of the Special Training Department and the captains. They thought that Elder Chu wanted them to be nicer to that student. Understood. Very understood. The teacher nodded. Elder Chu nodded in satisfaction. It's good that you understand. Then I'm fine. With that, Elder Chu left happily. The remaining captains looked at each other. Elder Chu's granddaughter came to the base? That can't be? I've never heard of Elder Chu having a granddaughter. She might be a friend's granddaughter. Elder Chu personally went through the back door. Everyone be careful. Don't offend people you shouldn't offend. At the Special Training Department, after the teachers of Class 1 and Class 2 received the news, they could only bite the bullet and do so. Very soon, a girl in a pink dress appeared at the entrance of Class 2. She looked gentle and amiable. Teacher, I'm sorry. I'm late. Can I still go in? When the teacher of Class 2 saw this, he immediately smiled and said, Student, you can report to Class 1. The teacher of Class 1 is waiting for you. Class 1. But my pass is sea level. Didn't you say? Before the girl could finish speaking, the teacher of Class 2 leaned against the wall and smiled gently. It's okay. Class 1 still lacks students. You are young and talented. Class 2 doesn't dare to accept you. These words caused the girl to be pleasantly surprised. Really? Originally, when she was in the Institute of Physics, the director said that she lost because she was too young. Otherwise, with her results in a few years, she would definitely be able to enter Class 1 directly. She didn't expect her to be so lucky that she could really enter Class 1 directly. Thank you, teacher. Guo Qingning hugged her books and ran toward Class 1. When she reached Class 1, Teacher, I'm Guo Qingning. I'm sorry for being late. Just now the teacher of Class 2 said that I can. Before Guo Qingning could finish, the the teacher nodded and smiled. Come in, Guoqingning. Thank you, teacher. Guoqingning suppressed her excitement and entered class 1. The others also did not expect that there would be such a young person in the class. She was only 23 or 24 years old, right? Are you always so gentle when you're late? I feel that this year's special training teachers are very strange. The people below were discussing, until another voice came from the door. Reporting. The teacher frowned and turned around to see Bei Yunj standing at the door. The atmosphere suddenly froze because Guoqingning had just entered and was already sitting in the last seat. Sorry I'm late, Bei Yunj said. Suddenly, the teacher became stern and said coldly, being late is being late. What's the use of apologizing? Bei Yunj raised his eyebrows and waited for her to continue. There's no place for you in class 1. Since you're late, you have to take responsibility for this situation. The teacher said lightly. The others looked at each other with different expressions. End of chapter. Chapter 973. The teacher didn't have this attitude just now. Everyone couldn't help but look at Guoqingning again, as if they understood something. Guoqingning glanced at Bei Yunj, smiled, and lowered her head to do her own thing. Bei Yunj also put the documents back into her pocket and turned around lazily. Stop right there. The teacher's face cracked. What are you going to do? Make a call and get someone to pick me up. Bei Yunj's tone was casual, and she didn't intend to force her to stay. As soon as she said this, the teacher's face almost stiffened. If Bei Yunj really left, she would have to bear the responsibility. Student, there are still vacancies in class 2. Suddenly, the teacher on the other side of the corridor looked at Bei Yunj with interest. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. She didn't look at the teacher and went straight to class 2. The students of class 1 saw that their teacher's face was distorted with anger and couldn't help but look outside. What kind of god was this? She even dared to offend a teacher from the special training department in District 1? Class 2. Okay, find a seat and sit down. The teacher of class 2 was young and good-looking, but she was a little slovenly. Even the students in class 2 looked much older than those in class 1. Bei Yunj replied, Thank you, teacher. How old is this little girl? Why did she come to this place? Some people were discussing. Some people directly asked Bei Yunj, Student, which research institute are you from? The Institute of Computing. Bei Yunj said calmly. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone suddenly understood why Bei Yunj was arranged to be in class 2. The students of class 1 were all from a first-class professional research institute. The students of class 2 were either not from a second-class research institute or Bei Yunj was from a not-so-professional computing institute. It's okay, it's easy to come to class 2. Another female researcher who was much older than Bei Yunj smiled. I'm Hegaing from the First Research Institute of the Ministry of National Defense. Bei Yunj from the Institute of Computing. As soon as she finished speaking, Hegaing looked surprised. Institute of Computing? You're from the Computing Institute, and the teacher from class 1 dares to send you to class 2? Bei Yunj replied calmly, Okay. Except for Hegaing. Everyone else felt that this was a difficult person to approach. Then have you seen Si Qingyan? Hegaing blushed and asked shyly. Bei Yunj paused and looked at her. I've seen her before. Really? Professor C is my idol. In last year's academic conference, he was the only member under the age of 30. She's also good-looking. Hegaing was extremely excited. Bei Yunj did not expect Si Qingyan to be so popular in the industry. However, Hegaing's excitement only lasted for an afternoon. The next day, only then did everyone know that this special training included physical fitness training. Although it would not be a request from the district team, it could still make these researchers, who were usually pampered, lose a layer of skin. The cafeteria was shared by the new members and the special training classes. Bei Yunj glanced at the big pots of rice in the cafeteria, and her eyelids twitched. Hegaing quickly realized the problem. You're not used to it? Bei Yunj did not speak. But looking at Bei Yunj's appearance, she knew that this was someone who had never suffered in the world. However, When Bei Yunj and He Gying went to get their food, they realized that the old master who was cooking had changed. Before Bei Yunj could look up, a can of beef was suddenly placed on the plate. This action stunned even the newbies in the district who had just finished eating and were about to leave. Chapter 974. Instantly, the rice balls in their bowls were no longer fragrant. Bei Yunj looked up and saw Elder Chu in his shift uniform. He raised his chin and looked arrogant. Bei Yunj, do you know this person? He Gying came back to her senses. Yes, I'm her grandfather. Elder Chu gave the other can to He Gying without blushing or skipping a beat. I'll have to trouble you to take care of her. Bei Yunj looked at him. Question mark. Hurry up and leave. The people behind you still need to get their food. Elder Chu chased them away after he finished speaking. But before Bei Yunj left, he stuffed a bottle of milk into her pocket. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. She could get into the kitchen through the back door? Gua Qingning, who happened to come to get her food, also saw the canned food on He Gying's plate. There's canned beef in the cafeteria? The person beside her had just finished watching the whole process and said mockingly, how can there be? There's a girl in class 2 whose grandfather works in the kitchen. Gua Qingning came back to her senses and smiled reservedly. I see. I'm so envious. What are you envious of? All the teachers and team leaders were very polite to you this morning. I almost thought that you were some big shot's granddaughter. The girl said. Gua Qingning shook her head and said helplessly, don't spread rumors. I'm not someone who relies on connections. Yes, you're the chosen one. You're not like some people who are so high profile, even when they come to the cafeteria. Just because your grandfather works in the kitchen, you think you're so great. The disdain and ridicule in the girl's eyes were not hidden at all, as if she was deliberately letting others hear. Those who don't know would think that her grandfather is in charge of District 3. It's nothing to suffer a little. I just want to get a place in the laboratory. After Gua Qingning finished speaking, she seemed to mention it unintentionally. What do you think of Vice Captain Bai? This morning, only the Vice Captain looked down on her cold appearance. Vice Captain Bai treats everyone the same. Don't mind him. In the backyard. When did I become your granddaughter? Bei Yunj saw Elder Chu weeding in the backyard and walked over to ask. Then what can I say? Say that you bribed me, so I gave you kin food? Elder Chu glanced at her. Bei Yunj. What's wrong? Is it embarrassing to have a grandfather in the kitchen? Elder Chu's tone was not very good. Bei Yunj squatted down to help and said slowly, I'm afraid that if my father finds out, it'll be hard to coax him when we get back. Elder Chu inexplicably felt sour in his heart. Do you often accompany your grandfather? Not often, so I don't dare to provoke him. Bei Yunj raised her beautiful eyes and smiled lazily. Elder Chu snorted. Suddenly, Elder Chu realized that something was wrong. Don't you have classes in the afternoon? Bei Yunj looked up at him, and their eyes met. Elder Chu wanted to curse. In the classroom, after receiving a scolding, Bei Yunj returned to her seat indifferently. Bei Yunj, where have you been? He's even late for class. He Gying was curious. Bei Yunj said casually without blushing. I'm helping my grandpa weed out the weeds. He Gying. She always felt that Bei Yunj did not come from an ordinary family. After the whole day, the special training class did not have time to rest. At night, Class 1 and Class 2 were gathered together. After everyone finished running, each of them was holding a computer and doing exercises. Everyone was tired and sleepy, and they still had to face these professional problems. Whichever class finishes the task first today can go back and rest first. After the training leader finished speaking, the others realized that Class 1 had changed into clean clothes, but their wet clothes were still clinging to their bodies. Chapter 975. Teacher, why can't the students from Class 1 change their clothes? Some students from Class 2 were not convinced. This was also because they had been holding grudges for a long time. Class 1 was better than Class 2 in all aspects, including the teachers. At this moment, the students from Class 1 sneered. Your class's standards are poor. They don't have time to change your clothes. That's right. Your class's efficiency is low. What does it have to do with our class? The corners of Guo Qingning's mouth curled up slightly. Soon, she lowered her head and continued to do the questions. What do you mean? The students from class 2 almost wanted to pick a fight. But after being glanced at by the captains from the district, the boy could only bite the bullet and sit down. Suddenly, why don't you give class 2 time to change their clothes? A burly man asked. Captain, buy this. Another captain's expression was a little bad. Their class can't spare the time, so. Do you think these researchers are from the district? White Bear frowned. The task given by the higher-ups is to train your physical fitness. It's not for you to do anything. Yes, another captain quickly replied. White Bear turned to class 2. You can change your clothes now. But this question is something that must be completed. Class 2 was silent. Instead of using the time to change their clothes, they might as well finish the question as soon as possible and go back to the dormitory. White Bear touched the back of his head and seemed a little impatient. You guys just wait and see. A few captains responded. After White Bear left, the teacher from class 1 glanced at everyone shrewdly. Class 2 seems to be very dissatisfied with the arrangement. The students from class 2 did not say anything. Next, the teacher pointed at the question on the screen. His tone was a little condescending. If your class can solve these questions, we will give equal treatment to class 1 and class 2 in the future. These words made the students from class 2's expression turn ugly. However, class 1 burst into laughter. TSK, the pot matches the lid. Haven't the students from class 2 heard of this before? They're not good enough. Yet they want to treat everyone equally. That's right. Didn't their class pick up someone that we didn't want? Suddenly, Hegang, who was doing the question quietly, stopped and suddenly raised her hand. The teacher from class 1 saw this. You want to do the question? No. I want to ask the students from class 1 to try. How many questions can they get right? Immediately, everyone in class 1 fell silent. Class 1's teacher's expression also instantly turned ugly as he looked at Hegang gloomily. Until Guo Qingning suddenly said, I can try the questions above. Teacher, can I? After class 1's teacher reacted, he smiled and said, Of course. To be able to solve half of the questions on this list is already very impressive. Guo Qingning stood up, walked to the front, and sat in front of the computer. About an hour later, Guo Qingning's answer process appeared on the screen. 6 out of 10 questions were correct. Everyone was stunned. How could Guo Qingning be so powerful at such a young age? Student Guo is amazing. The teacher of class 1 was all smiles as he clapped his hands and said. Guo Qingning nodded and walked to Hegang. She straightened her back and said with a faint smile, Someone from class 1 has tried. Who in class 2 wants to try? Immediately, the students of class 1 were whistling in private. Goddess Guo is so cool. Class 2, don't be a coward. If you dare to snatch resources, why don't you dare to go up and do the questions? Everyone in class 2 had ugly expressions on their faces. Suddenly, a clear and lazy voice sounded not far away. Why is the water in the bathhouse cold? Chapter 976. Everyone turned around and saw a girl wearing a light-colored sweater and light green cotton jacket walking in. It was a strong contrast to their unkempt image. Which class are you from? The captain asked immediately. Class 2, Beiyun said slowly. Without even looking at Guo Qingning, he walked to Hegang and sat down. The captains suddenly regained their senses. When did you go to the bathhouse? Why didn't you gather here? I wanted to change my clothes after running. Beiyun's tone was calm. The students of class 2 could not help but look at Beiyun in admiration. This person was really wild. The captains were also furious, but they had just been reprimanded by White Bear. Their faces were livid, and they could not flare up. Student, you're blocking my light by standing here. Beiyun looked up carelessly and glanced at Guo Qingning. Guo Qingning averted her gaze inexplicably, and her body stiffened. However, after regaining her senses, Guo Qingning felt embarrassed. She was still standing in front of Beiyun. Pursing her lips, she continued. Since your class wants to compete with our class so much and feels aggrieved, doesn't anyone dare to compete with me? Gang was about to stand up when she heard Bei Yunj speak. Are you looking for trouble? Gang froze and slowly turned to look at Bei Yunj. She had a bad feeling. Indeed. Seeing Bei Yunj looking at Guo Qingning with a faint smile, and lazily twirling the fountain pen in his hand, the danger in his eyes was obvious. Gang did not quite understand why Guo Qingning wanted to provoke Bei Yunj as well. What good could this do? Yunj, calm down. The questions on the screen were all set by the special training department. Even I'm worried about it. Gang grabbed Bei Yunj's hand and said in a low voice. The questions on the screen. Bei Yunj glanced at the questions not far away, and then glanced at the others. At this moment, the teacher of class 1 recognized Bei Yunj and said in a mocking tone, Do you want to give it a try? Gang pressed down on Bei Yunj's hand, calmly took a deep breath, and tried to stand up on her own. But in the next second, Bei Yunj stood up and walked over to the screen. She casually glanced at class 1, and then at class 2. What did class 1 do? Class 1's teacher smiled. Of course. He answered 6 questions correctly. If you can also answer 6 questions correctly, if I can do everything right, can class 2 go back earlier? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and asked unhurriedly. The teachers of class 1 felt that Bei Yunj did not know the immensity of the world. The captains couldn't help but snicker. These questions were specially used by the special training department to deal with those who thought they had some talent and could look down on the rules. To be able to go against the 6 paths of reincarnation was already an incredible feat. Was there anyone who wanted to get everything right? Class 2 lowered their heads, not daring to look at this tragic scene. If you do it right, you can do whatever you want in the future. The captain chuckled, not believing in this. Guo Qingning only smiled and deliberately emphasized the word gap. Student, don't misunderstand. I just want everyone to know what the gap is. You don't have to force yourself. There are only 2 spots in the laboratory. It's understandable for the teachers to give more resources to class 1. Bei Yunj snorted, her bright eyes unruly. She sat in front of the computer, held the mouse and said leisurely, You guys are quite serious when you're accompanying him. Instantly, Guo Qingning's expression changed. P.S. Yesterday's update will continue tonight. Pinch face. Thank you for helping Master Pei. Chapter 977. The teachers of class 1 were also looking at Bei Yunj with an uncertain expression. Fortunately, they did not keep this person in class 1. Such an arrogant and unruly character was hopeless. At first, the people around also thought that Bei Yunj was being arrogant. She did not know how difficult the questions in the special training department were. The captains were discussing. This researcher from class 2 is really bold. The captain of class 2 shook his head. She's too young. Are the people from the special training department easy to deal with? Aren't these questions used to crush the self-confidence of these young people who think they're so great? The captains all smiled tacitly. 10 minutes passed. Hearing the sound of Bei Yunj typing on the keyboard, someone from class 2 whispered, She seems to have been doing the questions. Can she really solve a few questions? The people from class 1 answered first and said sarcastically, She's been doing the questions? Look at her speed. Does it look like she's doing it seriously? Everyone thought about how Guo Qingning's solving speed was not very fast. In comparison, Bei Yunj was simply messing around. If she can't beat her, then so be it. She lost too badly. Someone from class 1 mocked. That's right. Guo Qingning was highly regarded by the captains as soon as she came in. She's young and talented. How can she be compared to Guo Qingning? Below the stage, Guo Qingning smiled, but did not say anything. She just watched quietly and wondered how the person on the stage was going to beat her. In less than 20 minutes, suddenly, the sound of the keyboard stopped. Everyone subconsciously looked at Bei Yunj. Suddenly, they saw the process of Bei Yunj answering all the questions on the screen. Then, a line of words appeared on the screen. Congratulations, student. You've answered all the questions correctly. In an instant, everyone in the room froze. The smiles of the captains who were chatting also froze. This was the first time they saw this line of words on the machine. They felt a chill down their backs. How long did she take to do the questions just now? I think less than 20 minutes. As soon as the words fell, many people's expressions cracked. Just now, Guo Qingming had done it for an hour and only answered 6 questions. What was this person doing? The teacher of class 1 almost lost his balance. His expression changed drastically, and his voice was trembling. How is that possible? Guo Qingming also felt cold all over. She stared at the line of words on the screen. She only took 10 minutes to answer 10 questions? Then, after the others gradually came back to their senses, they realized that Bei Yunj was still typing, until someone from class 2 looked down at their computer. What's going on? My computer screen black. Mine too. What's going on? He Guying was the first person to have a strange premonition when she saw the computer screen suddenly turn black. She looked up very slowly at Bei Yunj. Bei, what are you doing? The captains also quickly realized that the problem with Class 2's computer was related to the person on the stage. Their faces were filled with horror. Bei. Suddenly, this scene made one's scalp tingle. Bei Yunj, stop it. Do you hear me? Stop it. The captains felt extremely suffocated when they saw Bei Yunj playing on the computer. The others also began to feel that this Bei Yunj was simply terrifying. Where did this humanoid bug come from? End of chapter. Chapter 978. Bei Yunj said slowly, soon. Wait for me to adjust the hot water in the bathhouse. He Guying was speechless. This person was too wild. Which research institute is this student from? Someone from class 1 found his voice. The person next to him said instinctively, Okay, I think it's the Computing Institute. Instantly, the atmosphere was cold and strange. Okay, no wonder. It turned out that he was a god in his field. What kind of gods are there in the Computing Institute this year? His tone was respectful. At the mention of the Computing Institute, who wouldn't know what kind of gods there were in the Computing Institute? In the end, the team leaders were so angry that their faces changed. They shouted angrily, What's wrong with the computer in your class? What are you trying to do? Do you want to go to heaven? Bei Yunj raised his eyebrows. He was indescribably high-spirited. He said calmly, The computer will automatically restore the program tomorrow. It can't be done tonight. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone understood what was going on. Bei Yunj was creating a forced break for Class 2. True enough, the team leaders couldn't do anything about Bei Yunj. It was because Zhong Shenglin often came to District 1 to wander around. Everyone knew how protective Zhong Shenglin was of his people. They didn't dare to touch the people from the Computing Institute. The team leaders were so angry that they felt dizzy. They laughed. Do you think you're very powerful? I'm not very powerful, but there's still a gap. Bei Yunj's unhurried words made Class 1 feel as if there was a fishbone stuck in their throat. Guo Qingming's face also turned red. She bit her lip and looked at Bei Yunj angrily. The program I set is not difficult. If you want to solve it, you can give it a try. After Bei Yunj finished speaking, the team leaders and Class 1's teachers were angry, but didn't dare to say anything. No matter how bad the people from the Computing Institute were, they were still gods in their field. They still wanted to try? Soon, Bei Yunj said a few words to He Guying. Then he glanced at Class 1's teachers casually, sneered and left. Class 1's teachers gritted their teeth. Not long after White Bear came back, he heard that there was a troublemaker in Class 2 who had hacked into the district's system and taken control of the entire control room. Even the computer in my class was hacked. However, after the crowd dispersed, He Guangkai said to Class 2, The computer will be back to normal in half an hour. If any of you still want to practice, you can go back to the dormitory to practice. Class 2. So Bei Yunj was just fooling the captain and the teachers just now? What's so great about that? Wasn't it just hacking a computer? You came from a computing institute. If you don't even know this, wouldn't you have learned it for nothing? Some students in class 1 couldn't help but feel jealous. Don't speak without thinking. Which King Computing Institute taught this? The people from class 2 laughed. The people from the Institute of Computing will still torture and kill a bunch of you from the School of Physics and Chemistry. Student, vegetables are the original sin. Gang smiled slightly. You. The girl gritted her teeth, and Guo Qingning, who was next to her, left with an unwilling look on her face. However, the next day, early in the morning, Bei Yunj was invited to the administration building for tea. Zhong Xinglin and Old Master Lung were both there, as well as a middle-aged man in his 40s. He should be the director of the special training department. He still didn't know Bei Yunj's identity. His anger did not dissipate. You can do whatever you want with the people you love. Old Master Lung pretended not to hear. Zhong Xinglin echoed in a deep voice. Director Han is right. Guer, explain why you hacked the system in the district? End of chapter. Chapter 979. Bei Yunj glanced at them. She thought for a moment. Because there's no hot water in the bathhouse. Zhong Xinglin glared and questioned Old Master Lung. How can there be no hot water in the bathhouse? Old Master Lung was speechless. Director Han was speechless. Bei Yunj stood beside Zhong Xinglin. There's a power outage in the dormitory at night. Zhong Xinglin slammed the table angrily and stood up. How can there be a power outage in the dormitory? What era do you think this is? Old Master Lung's eyelids twitched. Originally, he had dragged Zhong Xinglin to scold Bei Yunj, but Zhong Xinglin turned around and scolded them instead. Director Han was so angry that his vision darkened. Zhong, is this your biological granddaughter? Why are you spoiling her so much? So what if I spoil her? If you don't like her, I'll take her away now. In the future, I won't lend her to you even if you kneel and beg me. Zhong Xinglin was also furious. He dragged Bei Yunj and prepared to leave. Old Zhong, calm down. I'll handle this matter. Old Master Lung immediately stopped him. Director Han found it even more ridiculous. He sneered. Zhong Xinglin, dream on. I'm still begging you to lend her. You. Zhong Xinglin was furious. Enough. Old Master Lung took a deep breath. The same goes for the special training department. Why are the young people in the research institute so strict? We'll restore the 24-hour hot water supply in the future. Director Han's face was livid. He put on a fake smile. It still needs to be restored. This morning, the people in the control room called and said that the background system can't be changed. Old Master Lung was speechless. Not long after, Old Master Lung turned around. Old Zhong, I'll settle this matter. You can go back first. Zhong Xinglin also turned around, but said to Bei Yunj, Guer, the people in our computing institute are not to be bullied. If there's anything, call me. At most, we'll go back to the institute. Director Han gritted his teeth at this protective behavior. Okay, you can go back first. Bei Yunj's eyes curved. After Zhong Xinglin left, Chief Han sat on the sofa and couldn't help but say angrily, Unreasonable. Elder Lung, I want to arrange a private room, Bei Yunj suddenly said. Director Han was so angry that he laughed out loud. Do you know where you are? Why should I arrange an individual room for you? Old Master Lung was about to say something when he suddenly saw the information that Zhong Xinglin had sent him from the corner of his eye. He was stunned for a moment, and subconsciously opened it to take a look. It was Bei Yunj's psychological diagnosis. Bipolar I patient. Description of the condition. It can be divided into depressive episodes, manic episodes, or mixed episodes. Anxiety, emotional instability, severe insomnia, and other symptoms. Old Master Lung used to be in the military and had seen such patients by chance. This was not a simple psychological barrier. He couldn't even use ordinary antidepressants as it might trigger a manic attack. Moreover, the patient he saw had committed suicide at home after leaving the team due to severe depression. Old Master Lung subconsciously looked up at Bei Yunj. Other than the red veins in his eyes, there was nothing unusual about him. How about this? I haven't lived in the house assigned to me in the district for 2 to 3 years. When you live in the district, you can stay at my place. Old Master Lung gave the key to Bei Yunj. Director Han turned around in disbelief. What? When he wanted to change Old Master Lung's house, Old Master Lung didn't agree. Now he was actually letting this little girl stay there. Look at how angry you've made Director Han. I'll punish you by not going to the cafeteria for lunch today. Have a good class in the afternoon. Do you hear me? Old Master Lung pretended to reprimand him. End of chapter. Chapter 980. However, after Director Han left, at noon, Bei Yunj sat opposite Old Master Lung and looked at the dishes on the table. They were exquisite and delicious. It was obvious that this meal was not cheap either. Hurry up and eat. Don't go to the cafeteria for lunch anymore. Come over and eat. Old Master Lung glanced at Bei Yunj and picked up his chopsticks. Bei Yunj looked at Old Master Lung's plain clothes and deliberated for a moment. This meal is quite expensive, right? Old Master Lung looked up. Who are you looking down on? Bei Yunj was speechless. All right, I've saved a lot in my life. How can I be poor when treating a junior to a meal? Old Master Lung took a can of food for Bei Yunj and said, Didn't they say that girls are better than boys now? Why are you even more delicate than those young master soldiers sent by your family? Bei Yunj glanced at the things on the table. I have this can. You have it. Old Master Lung was stunned. Wasn't this distributed by the district? Could it be that they were selling it outside too? Take a few cans first. There aren't any shops here. Old Master Lung stuffed the things to Bei Yunj. In the afternoon, at the laboratory base, 2 classes were in class together. For some reason, there was a power outage. Higaing, why isn't Bei Yunj here? Class 2 suddenly asked. Before Higaing could speak, someone from Class 1 answered first. She was in the limelight yesterday. Didn't she offend someone and was brought in for questioning? Another person giggled and said, Maybe she has to pack her things and get lost? At the same time, Gua Qingming, who was recording the experimental data, stopped writing, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. You have to be capable to be in the limelight. Didn't your Class 1 come to our Class 2 to pick people personally? After Higaing said this, Gua Qingming's expression quickly turned ugly. She stood up with a livid expression and threw down her pen. No matter how the people behind her called out to her, she walked out of the laboratory. However, she did not expect to bump into someone the moment she stepped out. Before Gua Qingming could flare up, she saw something hidden in his pocket fall out. The boy immediately picked it up and put it back into his pocket. Gua Qingming was expressionless. What is this? Student Gua. Gua Qingming didn't say anything and wanted to leave. Seeing this, the boy hurriedly pulled Gua Qingming back. He made up his mind and said in a low voice, It's the exam content of the special training department. Higaing's body froze. Are you crazy? How could he not know where they were? How dare he steal the answers here? There was a power outage in the building just now. The surveillance cameras can't detect me. The boy grabbed Gua Qingming's wrist. Miss Gua, don't report me. I can give you the answer. At that time, the 2 of us will enter the laboratory together. Gua Qingming flung his hand away. No need. The boy gritted his teeth. Gua Qingming, other than Bei Yunj, there is also Higaing in Class 2. Higaing was from the First Research Institute of the National Defense Department. In the morning's test results, she was first and you were second. These words successfully made Gua Qingming stand firm. She turned around and said in a gloomy tone, What did you say? In addition, Bei Yunj was called away. Are you sure you don't need the answer in my hand? The boy smiled. Gua Qingming's face was gloomy. When Bei Yunj returned to the laboratory, the electricity in the district had already been restored. As soon as she entered, she heard the discussion inside. I say, your class does have all kinds of crooked people. Since when did people from the Computing Institute have the right to participate in our experimental special training? P.S. I've been busy these 2 days and haven't updated much. I'll make up for it today. End of chapter. That you're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.